is the thing. You push the button.
It's on.
We normally have some sort of pithy kind of.
Yeah, we're normally part way through. We timed that badly. I timed it badly. I'm the one in charge of the blooming button. Yeah, we're normally kind of part way through something that makes the audience go, "Ooh!"
You have to get a doctor to pull it out.
That's what I didn't want to talk about. That. Come on, lads. I told you that in confidence.
I know, but if anyone knows a good supplier for lube, then that's what we need.
Well, come on. I mean, any Mythbusters fans, it's like Adam Savage's mantra: little lubrication, anything's possible.
I haven't even got any social lubricant tonight. I'm just on blackcurrant juice as well.
Yeah, it's all about WD-40 or duct tape, isn't it? Yeah, it's supposed to move.
Yeah, it's the engineer's flowchart.
WD-40, if it is moving, it's not supposed to. Duct tape kind of
cable
solves
ties,
most problems in life.
Cable ties hold the world together as well.
So true. So very true.
I mean, you kind of think about this kind of sometimes one thinks about this kind of what are those essential kind of things to have? Every home should have, duct tape, cable ties, WD-40. Yeah,
and a Joe.
Yeah, I mean, like proper Harry Potter situation. I can fit under the stairs at least. So most people, that's where you keep all your DIY stuff anyway. So it's just nice and handy.
Put you in like a crate, just take you off the shelf.
Yeah, yeah. No, but I don't think there is anything that you couldn't do without duct tape, cable ties, or WD-40. Now I'm thinking of it, like your regular household problems. Maybe like, I don't know, silicone gun. So then whatever you've bodged up, you can make it look okay. Just slather it with silicone.
Or maybe some super glue as well.
Yeah,
but super glue is just for injuries, isn't it? It's not for actually gluing it. It's just for patching up injuries.
Yeah.
Electrical tape as well. I find it easier for it's a bit stretchier than duct tape if you're kind of trying to do a wound together.
Yeah, but the problem with using electrical tape for stuff is it generally then gets used for repairs as well. And we all know how long a temporary repair is supposed to last. But then when you come back to finally repair it properly 3 or 4 years later, and you're trying to peel off that dry, knackered electrical tape it's still working, still holding, but you do actually want to repair it properly.
But when you peel it off, it leaves the sticky residue all over the cable or whatever it is that you've.
Exactly, yeah. It's those temporary repairs that last for several years.
I'll tell you what works well for like cuts and stuff with the super glue, just a little bit of kitchen roll. When I'll dab like kitchen roll on top, and then I'll put more super glue on top of that, and it sets like rock hard. And then when the wound's like naturally healed, it comes off, and then you just got a healed thing. I belt sanded through my fingernail once, not the nicest thing. And I was like, I can't put a regular plaster on this, so I literally just layered kitchen roll and soup, and I made like a kitchen roll fingernail for like a week, and then it worked.
Fantastic.
It's good stuff. I think most people know that it was kind of. Well, I don't know how much of the myth it is, but there was kind of rumoured that it was sort of developed for treating injuries during Vietnam. But I think it actually dates back further back than that. But certainly kind of medical glues are essentially CA glues. But certainly in the kind of the 80s and into the 90s, I don't know if nowadays, because 80s and 90s is when I was climbing. Climbers will often carry some super glue because if you cut your fingers, you could actually kind of fill your finger with the super glue and then just file it so that you have a bit of sandpaper or something. So you'd file it flat so you were then able to keep climbing again.
Oh, wow. That sounds awful lot like I used to do temping bowling, not like professionally, but I used to bowl in a team, and I used to like travel the country in tournaments. And when you bowl a lot in tournaments, you can kind of like rub away the skin on your thumb. So they used to do patch repairs. So you buy like a patch repair kit, a bit like a puncture repair kit. And all that was like super glue that you could apply with like a nail varnish brush, and then little cotton cloth pads. So you'd paint some on, put a cotton pad on, paint over it, put another pad, paint over it, and it'd create like a little puncture repair for on your thumb. It was brilliant stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense to do that, especially because it just all peels off anyway, doesn't it? Really.
Yeah, it does. It was good as well because you could like watch. As soon as you put soap on, it would kind of just delaminate and come away. So there must have been a special, not just regular like straight up CA glue, but it worked the same as that.
I don't know if you can still get it, but you used to be able to get like I can't remember the name of the brand, but essentially it was a plaster in a can. So it was this spray can that you could literally just, if you had a wound, you could just spray it over it, and you ended up with this plastic film that kind of just.
It didn't say plastic coat on the side, did it?
No. It was sort of a clear, it's not sort of black or red or blue or whatever colours plastic comes in. It was clear, stung like anything if you used it.
Yeah, I'll bet.
But it was great. It was great for those kind of awkward places where plasters don't stick.
I remember.
Still no good for hairy legs. Though. If you've got hairy legs, it was still rubbish though, because
so that's the thing.
Instead of plaster sticking on the hairy leg and then being
I used to
real
get
pain.
It's the Maplin's own spray isopropyl alcohol for like cleaning circuit boards and stuff, and that was the usual sort of thing. If you cut yourself, you spray a load of that in, squeal a little bit because it stung like hell, and then gaffer tape over it. And mate of mine did that when we were putting some cabling into my old flat, and he managed to put a Stanley blade right into the top of his thigh, or into his quad, through his jeans. Fresh blade straight in, and he was just like, right. I was like, what can I do? What do you need? And he went, IPA and probably something to cauterize it, or gaffer tape. That'll do. And that was it. He just like dropped his jeans, sprayed the IPA on, and then just taped his leg back together.
No way.
He still had cables to fit. I wasn't letting him off that easy.
Oh, yeah, that doesn't sound pleasant.
No, not so much. It was a brand new blade. It hadn't reached the point of like hurting much yet because it's such a perfectly clean cut. I mean, obviously it hurt and took a while to heal, but it was.
But that is the thing. A really sharp blade will hardly hurt initially. It's only when stuff starts getting into the wound. I sliced my left ring finger open a couple of years ago doing some carving, and it was literally, I wasn't actually carving at the time because obviously I was cutting my hand, which is not really carving, but I was like
technically carving.
Yeah, it was during the process of sharpening my blade. It was my Mora carving knife, which is pretty sharp anyway, but it was kind of I need to give it a little extra. And for the life of me, because I was just I've got one of those kind of crossrod ceramic sharpeners. It's a honing basically, and for the life of me, I cannot work out, couldn't at the time, how I managed to cut myself, because the way I've been using the thing for 20 years. I was holding it the correct way, and it was just like, oh, the only thing I can think of that I must have momentarily lost attention. Something happened somewhere else, and I'm just kind of like, what was that? And just kind of mislaid my spatial awareness at the same time, because it was just like, oh, there's lots of blood pouring out my finger.
That's when you know it's a bad one. When you're like halfway through a project and you're like, "Where's this blood coming from? Why is everything stained there?" And you're like, "What have I done here? Where is it?" It's like, "Oh, my finger's on that red."
Yeah, and it doesn't stand out very well either, does it? Yeah,
no, it doesn't.
It depends on the wood, but
you can just say it's like your trademark. Like some people leave little metal discs with their logos in. It's like, I leave DNA.
Natural stain.
There's a piece of me in every piece. If you can find it, you get 10% off. Yeah, but that doesn't stain as much.
I
It does sort of beg the
feel
question, actually, because I was thinking the other day about I've got some leatherworking stuff coming up, but it would be useful to have some way of colouring the leather that isn't harmful. So I was trying to think. I was thinking, okay, now you can colour leather with coffee, and I was thinking, sort of trying to think of other things that would be safe to have on a table where other people will be using and playing with and all the rest of stuff. And if someone accidentally just grabbed it and drunk it, not the end of the world if someone drinks some coffee. But if someone drinks some oil-based leather dye, it's a little bit different. So at least that's the red sorted as well now.
That's the red. Unless you look at using beetroot juice. I think I've seen turmeric used as well if you wanted a yellow. But yeah, I don't know. Am I wrong in thinking that oxblood red was actually the leather dyed with the oxblood as well?
It wouldn't surprise me. It's not something I actually know
believe it
about.
was. So it's technically you could just call it oxblood.
Traditional techniques.
Yeah, I mean you apply neatsfoot oil, which is literally just like cow shins and feet. Yeah, so, I mean it's just more bits of cow attached to leather. So may as well use another part.
So I've never actually dabbled with leather work. I have actually brought some leather though. I've got I wanted to make a little card wallet. So I've got a wallet that a good friend of mine made me. Sam Blakelock, if you haven't seen, you've got to check him out. But he made me a wallet that I can keep my notes in as well as cards and everything. And it's brilliant, but I'm skint. So sometimes I just need cards. So I was thinking of making a little card wallet. So I brought the leather, and I've had that leather for a year and a half now. I'm looking over it because it is actually. This is the thing. I leave stuff out with the intention of using it. It's been sat there for a year and a half, and this is my bedroom, as you can tell. But I will use it at some point. But that's I've got some magenta, I've got some orange, and I've got some traditional tan kind of brown leather, just little sample swatches. But it's already done. I haven't got to bother trying to stain it myself. So I've got the easy part out of it. I've just got to learn how to stitch it and edge it and all that kind of stuff. But it'll get done.
That's definitely a conversation we can have.
We need to. Because I ain't got a clue. I was just hoping that it would be easy. I got some contact adhesive as well. I was thinking I'll just stick it together with contact adhesive, and then it doesn't matter if the stitches aren't great. That was my kind of thought process.
Fine, we'll get the stitches will be.
It'll be all right.
Spot on, mate.
I hope so.
I can definitely vouch for Red Smith's got a card wallet template.
Oh, brilliant.
Which is very, very cool. I've got one of those wallets, and it is a nice little pattern.
Nice. I'll have to check that out.
Sounds like... Is there going to be at Maker Central last time, there was a couple of tables set up. There was Rick Morley, Ellen, and quite a few others that were kind of sort of teaching people different things. I'm pretty sure leather was one of those, wasn't it?
Well, sneaky insider information.
Oh, here we go.
There is going to be a leather bracelet making workshop on the Make with Maker stand.
Nice.
Run by me and Red Smith.
So, that is where I need to head straight away.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Nice one.
Sounds like a bit of insider gossip.
You heard it here first.
Yeah. I'm wrecking the place and everything now.
So maybe
can't wait for this year's event.
It's going to be good. Forgot
2 years.
Yeah, it's far too long. Well, I did those blanks in back end of 2019.
Oh, did you?
Ready for the 2020 event, and they've been sat on my desk since then.
Oh my god.
Just worrying.
Yeah, it's gonna be. There's some good. It's gonna be good for those who can make it.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, it's that just that little feeling of getting some kind of normality back again as well. I think because obviously the hardship of missing out on that first year, but I think everybody was like, yeah, it's going to happen. But you had that bit, oh, we'll be all right next year. Next year will be okay, and then obviously
It
not.
didn't happen.
So
Yeah.
it looks like it's pretty bang on for this year. Fingers crossed, definitely.
Fingers crossed, yeah.
So it's just an extra long build up. And just the excitement is building even more now. I can't wait to be able to just have a catch up with people, because it's like it's one thing like seeing what I'm up to online and commenting here and there, maybe drop a message every now and again, but just being able to sit down and just be like, "How am ya? How you doing?" Like just that. That's everything for me at these events, to be honest. Just being able to catch up with people and meet people, but obviously Maker Central, it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's going to be bittersweet as well. I think because there's going to be lots of people there that are going to want to see and catch up with, but then lots of people who won't be able to make it this year. And then there's obviously there's a lot of people are going to still be rightfully quite cautious still. So there's going to be that kind of like you're just going to want to sort of run in and just hug everyone, and then sort of get through the first couple and think, oh, I really shouldn't be doing this. But I want to hug you as well.
It's right. It is. It's going to be inevitable, and I think, well, from my experience anyway, a lot of the places that I have been up until now, most people are still like really cautious, and rightfully so. So we'll just have to see how things go, I suppose. But like you say, fighting that urge to just let go, so to speak. But we'll be all right. It'll be a good one.
I was going to do like a big kind of spinning, or not spinning, but spinnable sort of badge type thing to, like, because I know I'm going to go through sort of different stages there of being, super excited and happy to see everyone, and then super overwhelmed and just wanting to not have people running up to me and stuff like that. So I was going to have something that I could, like, rotate round to different kind of states. Like I'm okay for a hug, or maybe just a fist bump, or just give me a minute to breathe, please. That kind of thing. So
yeah, that's a good idea.
On options.
That is a good idea. I saw some similar like lanyards at events before. So when you went in, you could ask like, and they'd give you a certain coloured lanyard. But I like the idea that you can change it on a whim whenever you need to.
Yeah,
that's what the person approaching you is somebody you really like or not.
Yeah,
well, there is that as well. That is the other option.
And then they're still coming like, I didn't change it, I forgot.
Or someone just sort of looks at you and then just walks off. You think, oh,
yeah,
that's why.
You'll have to have your Jimmy. You'll have to have your
do fine.
Your do-flu thing on your glasses, and then you just have a little kind of head-up display telling you which one you've got.
Yeah.
So that you can see
feedback. Just oh my god, that's such a me thing to do as well. Instead of just looking down at what's on my boob, just have something that's there in my vision instead. A couple of $100 worth of technology just to do that.
It's energy saving.
Last.
Yeah. I mean, you don't want to wear the neck muscles out by looking down every couple of minutes, do you?
Not at all.
We've had a question actually from the chat, wondering whether you're going to make a Jenga block, Joe.
A Jenga block?
Yeah, do you know about a Jenga block? Make a Jenga?
I haven't heard of this. Is this like the coin swap?
No. This is going to be ultra epic. So there is going to be giant Maker Jenga. So when we say giant, the blocks are 300mm by 100mm by 50mm.
Gotcha.
And they're going to be, we need at least 56, I think, to do a full stack of Jenga.
Yeah.
Or however many it is.
56, because that's not a multiple of 3.
Well, we need many lots.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter, does it? I mean, how many Jenga sets actually have multiples of 3 anyway? There's normally one or 2 lost pieces.
But there needs to be many blocks, all of exactly the same size. Andy will find the details for it for the exact size.
Yeah,
It's
I'll stick
basically-
it in the show notes. It's
It's the imperial
John made
equivalent
it.
of the metric stuff.
yeah,
Gotcha.
But
Yeah.
then the idea is that we'll make this big Jenga stack, and like all the different makers are making different blocks of different materials, different styles, different everything stuff, and lots of like booby trapped ones, lots of weird materials. So there's potentially going to be stuff like polystyrene or solid aluminium or
All right.
hollow ones or booby trap ones that shake or with fans in, or all sorts of weird and wonderful creations, and 3D printed one that's for me. So yeah,
That's brilliant.
it's going to be brilliant and ridiculous because
I'm
it's
gonna have to get my
absolutely going to
thinking
fall.
cap on for that.
Yeah,
definitely. It's like magenta.
Nice one. Well, it's
Magenta
come
end.
on. Yeah. No, it's just magenta. That's just it. Magenta.
it just
Luminous.
coat the whole thing in magenta felt.
Yeah. That's it. So impossible to slide out.
Yeah.
Just put grip on it.
Or velvet, so it'll slip one way but not the other.
Yeah. That's it. And then you know which way it's got to slide out.
Yeah, you just put a little kind of sort of hidden marker of some sort, so you know
Yeah, I
which
like
way
that.
it is.
I was having a chat with Duncan from the hobby shop the other day about it, and we were discussing the plausibility of the touch lamps.
Yeah.
I've got the circuit driver that can make a touch lamp. So we were talking about the mechanics of whether or not we could do something like that, so that as soon as you touch the block, it detects the touch and then does something, whether it's
Oh, right. Yeah.
like shakes or expands or lifts up or makes noise or some kind of booby trapped block.
Nice.
It could be hilarious. Darren just said he'll make one with magnets, stick next to metal ones.
That's it.
Imagine you try to pull
Oh,
one
good
out.
for the aluminium
piece
block, though.
the piece above starts coming with it as well.
Yeah. You put it in and it repels all the others. I'll just cover mine with washers. That's it.
Yeah, I was thinking about one with the Oasis, the floral foam,
Yeah.
but because then it'll just like dent and deform and change its shape, and it's
Grab it,
ridiculously expensive.
hands just go through it.
Yeah, exactly. Trying to sort of pull the thing out, and it starts just pulling apart and crumbling.
Could be like it's like kind of Jenga crossed with Operation, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much.
It is, yeah. I wonder if you could do like a water soluble one, and then you could just like have a spritz bottle and just like if you could make cut out a just condensed candy floss and then spray it and just disappear.
Well, if there's a polystyrene one, if you spray it with nail varnish
Acetone.
remover,
Yeah.
that'll just collapse and fairly quickly.
Might be a health and safety hazard if there's like electronics around as well. The
Yeah,
flaming
true.
Jenga block.
But now I want to make it completely like just one filled with water. Just how
Make it out of ice and then just play the lung down. just simply wait. It'll go eventually.
I should
I forgot the ice carving again. Yeah, just say
Just get them
Come here,
whipped
bit.
up here.
make like a if you did an aluminium one that had like a fill plug at the top and then just like a little tiny hole in like one bottom corner, and then just do the whole thing, fill it full of water, freeze it, so that then it just over the course of the day it just starts dripping out one side and too many ideas now.
Make it into a hip flask and just have like a keg tap on the end, so when it's in the block you can come and take a drink out of it.
I think Mr. Dr. Multi might have already been coming up with that idea.
Yeah.
That'd be a good one.
Or that's a free one for him. Yeah, if he hasn't already
Yeah.
come up with an idea. I'm sure he's got the means to make it. He's got a TIG welder.
I think it might take him a while if he's using that little micro TIG to just pulse TIG the entire thing.
Yeah, it could take a while. Yeah.
I'm not even saying nothing about welding. I had a go, and I'm just like, I'm getting stuff to stick. That's the main thing for me. It's
Yeah.
not pretty. I've been doing the armor test, and they've been holding up to the armor test. So that's kind of, I'm happy with it that it'll stay together, but I'm not consistent enough to know that I'm not going to go all the way through and just burn it to pieces, or that it's not just going to sit on the surface. So I've got a long way to go. So I'm not going to like even make jokes because I'm not even from a standpoint of making jokes.
All starting welders need a grinder within arm's reach, because that's the only way to make
Definitely.
it look vaguely passable.
Yeah. This is the thing. So, like, genuinely, at this stage, like, I do not care what it looks like at all. I just want to make sure that it sticks and
Yeah.
that I can consistently, like, say, not burn through and actually have it penetrate enough, and then I'm happy. It could be whatever. I don't care. Just get it to stick. But I'm not there. Whenever I get to the end on the corner, I'm like, that's okay. And it's just that millisecond when it's gone through. No. And I was like, I'll do it the next time and a bit too less, and I'll look, and then I hit it with the hammer and it just breaks off. I'm like, a bit longer.
But if you think about, if you were doing something, if you're doing a wood project, you would probably do all your joining and then cut it to final length. So maybe you just, blow through the end, but then cut that end back to the right length.
Or I just fill it with wood filler. just bondo everything. Like, make sure it's stuck in one place at least, and then just car body filler.
Yeah.
Grind it back, paint it, done. Perfect welds every time.
Absolutely.
Isn't that a lot of it? I mean, like Jimmy says, a lot of welding is taking it back
Grinder
with the
and
grinder
paint
to make it
the
look
welder
better.
I ain't.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of half the battle, isn't it? Just get it to stick. If it sticks and it's stuck together, grind it so it looks nice, and
Good
can't go
enough.
wrong with a decent flat disc.
Definitely. Unless it's disheartening though, because I was going through the process. I was trying to like weld some legs up, and it just, I wasn't happy with it, and I was looking at buying some more steel to try and have another go. And then I found, like, because you can buy like ready welded table legs and whatever, and it was cheaper to buy the ready made legs than to buy the raw steel.
Yep.
I'm like, what am I doing here? Like, I don't want to be throwing money away, so I went down that route. And then the legs that I'd started doing, I'm literally just chopping that up for like practice scrap and what have you.
Yeah,
So it's hard. I do find it hard when you look at, because ideal world, you want to just make everything yourself, and then you see these like things pop up on Amazon and adverts on Facebook, and it's like, it's a tenth of the price it would be to make it myself, and I can get the project
that's the old
done.
saying, isn't it? Why buy that thing for 15 quid when you can make it yourself for 150 quid's worth of maker supplies and workshop full of tools?
Yeah.
It's so true. 10 years investment in a workshop, and and I've made a shelf that I could have got for £2 from IKEA.
Yeah, if you look at, I mean, you kind of do that with tools. You think, I've been thinking about getting rid of my 1/2-inch router, because it's a meaty thing. I've had it for probably about 8-9 years, and I've literally used it half a dozen times. I can think of all the things I've used it for, and it's half a dozen times. And it's just like, it's really, I mean, it's a nice DeWalt. It's a nice bit of kit. I do like it. I struggle to use it now because it's just so blooming heavy, and it's got a lot of torque. I just think, okay, if I look at all the projects that's been used on, that's like, well, that runs like 50 quid to just do that. That's one small thing there, another event, that's another 50 quid, because it's like,
It's true.
Yeah, I've made this object that I could buy for, like you say, you buy a shelf for 2 quid, but I've used this piece of kit that's really expensive, but it's only one of 6 times I've used this bit of kit, so that's like 1/6 of the cost of that. So that's like 50 quid. Yeah. Well, if you're in the trades and you're doing it every day, then it comes down to it's a quid or less, but you kind of only use it a few times. You think, should I just try and get still some good money for it?
Well, that's the thing.
I've been trying to.
Right, go on, Joe.
Go on, mate. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say that for the few times you would use it, you could always hire one in, but then you're probably looking £15 for hiring it, and then you're back up to, well, you may as well just keep hold of it, and the more you use it over the next 10, 15, 20 years, the less it's going to cost you anyway.
Yeah.
It's true. Plus, you got the benefit of I always try and justify the fact that this is our hobby. And if you think of other hobby activities that you might have, it's usually money goes out and then it's never seen again. As opposed to buying tools, it is an investment. I think that tools hold the value really well, especially if you've got known brands like you say with DeWalt. If you do come to sell it 5-10 years down the line, you're still going to get something back for it. Yeah. Plus, it's I don't know, you go and spend £150 on a router. You could have easily spent that on, I don't know, what's another hobby? I don't know any other hobbies other than making. You could spend that a weekend drinking, and then
I was going to say, people are going, a weekend of entertainment, isn't it?
Yeah.
The time for taking a meal, some drinks, particularly if you go in somewhere where it's like £5 a pint or more. Yeah,
it's true.
Pop to London for a weekend, and that's that's a meal for two and drinks for two, isn't it? £150.
So I could have brought a jigsaw for that.
And all I got was this bloody hangover.
Yeah.
It's surprising how tool kind of. I think a couple of years ago, I kind of sort of stood in the tinkerage, I was kind of thinking, right, well, that thing was £50, that thing was £100, that thing, and it's surprising how quickly it tots up. And it's obvious. I think it's more obvious with, say, like the power tools, because you think, oh, it's a power tool, it's going to be expensive. Yeah, it's got battery and whatever. And if you're using a named brand, where it's kind of I bought a new drill driver last year. I only went for the cheapest good one I could find, which was about £120 because it was on offer Bosch, and it's a beautiful bit of kit. I love it. It's really nice. Yeah, it was my first lithium-ion drill driver because I was still using a NiCad that I bought 10 years earlier, which was a DeWalt, which is a lovely bit of kit. When I bought that, again, kind of £100 sort of price mark.
We were so excited when you bought that drill, knowing how much of a massive difference it was going to be from what you were used to.
Yeah, lighter, stacks more powerful. Yeah, but it's but when you start then looking into kind of other things, because a lot of the tools I've got, not all, but some have been bought kind of for the hobby of making, but a lot of the tools I've got have been bought for, right, we're doing stuff on the house. And we can justify the cost because we're not paying somebody else to do the work at ridiculous sort of, particularly down here in the southeast. Some of the rates for people is just ridiculous. We've got to have our shower replaced. I had a quote last weekend, and I know how much work it's going to be to do. I know how easy it's going to be to do, and the one quote was in 4 figures. I was just like, this is a day's work. It's less than £200 worth of materials, and you're charging into 4 figures. And it's just like, no way. It's just no. That guy's not getting it. Yeah, for sure. But when you start kind of looking at things like like plumbing tools. Yeah. And then electrical tools, because I've done a fair bit of sort of electrical work in various houses, and you start actually totting up the price of really good spanners or specialist spanners like box spanners and things like that. And it's surprising how quickly those things start totting up to, again, silly money, but you've acquired over kind of a long period of time, and it's a little bit scary, but say a fraction against the cost of actually getting other people to do the jobs, if you're able to do the job.
Definitely, that's where a big benefit comes in if you can inherit a lot of tools, or just go and steal them from relatives. Because any homeowner, they're gonna have old rusty spanners, and they're gonna, like you said, the socket sets and a weird one particular kind of specialist screwdriver that you need. Chances are that like your mum and dad, nan and granddad, they've got it knocking about somewhere. So then you inherit them, and then I've literally got like I've narrowed it down to just one cardboard box now. Everything is just orange inside, just like rust sludge at this point. There's drill bits in there, spanners, everything, but it's there. And then what I've been doing when I actually need to dig through the box because I can't find something that I brought new, I'll use what I found rusty, and then I'll buy a new one. And that's how I've been kind of, right, I needed to resort to the rusty pile. It means that I'm going to nip to Tool Station and pick up this 10mm socket, whatever. Yeah.
That hurt. I lost far too many 10mm things.
I've got a brand new like socket set sealed, and I reckon when I open it, the 10mm won't be inside.
Well, it's like the fridge door, isn't it? You know, you don't know that the light's off because as soon as you close the door, you can't see it. So it's the same thing. It's Schrodinger's 10mm socket. You know?
Yeah. I wonder where they go. Is it like you're going to find them with all the odd socks as well from the washing machine?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The same as the biros in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same principle. They just fall through little gaps in the kind of space-time continuum and end up on planet 10mm socket.
Yeah, pretty much.
Biro theory.
I've got an old grey Bosch sort of drill case.
Grey Bosch.
Yeah.
Okay.
A very old grey Bosch drill box. As in sort of SDS corded type drill box. Yeah, pre-sustainer kind of sort of stuff. With a lot of the spanners, I think probably all the spanners, and tyre irons that my dad used to fix the cars with back in the 1970s. I've got, and there's not one. There's no set. None of them are from the same set. Yeah, they're all kind of odd.
And none of them probably fit any car that you would buy today.
No. No,
you might need it. Can't get rid of them. You never know. You might
exactly.
need it.
There's that.
Don't encourage him, Joe.
Maybe one day, I'll get a car to work on that's an old car to work on, and then it might be just the right thing.
I was just about to say, but you're not going to buy a 30-year-old car now, and then went, hang on a minute, 70s.
30-year-old ain't old enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wouldn't be 30-year-old. I mean, to be fair, the spark plug spanner, that's probably still the same size, I think.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Not that I've personally changed spark plugs in a car for a couple of decades.
Do they even make cars with combustion engines anymore?
Yeah, ask us again in a couple of years, and that'll be a firm no, I think.
Yeah.
Fewer and fewer. Yeah. Which is
I've still got a pack of spark plugs for a car that I haven't owned for at least 9 years, and they're still sealed in the packet. I never got around to putting them in the car. But, I still got them. Might need them.
There could be a collector's item. of years gone by.
It's for a really just nothing special car as well. It's not like they're a sought after item. They just.
But some people, you say not a special car, but some people really enjoy kind of just doing up those not special cars. Yeah, you get car show. I mean, obviously and everyone knows you get kind of sort of shows for things like all the Volkswagen collectors, which is just full of Beetles and the old Travellers and camper vans. But you get to some of these events. I was at an agricultural show in last summer. Just say it was in the town. We were staying in Oakhampton on holiday, and the Okehampton Agricultural Show was on that week, so we thought, well, yeah, it's walking distance. So we drove up to the agricultural show, and literally there was a section that was vintage cars, and you kind of you go to it, and you start off, and there's the kind of Alvises and the like from the 1920s. I think the oldest car there was kind of 22, 24, and then you kind of go along, and then there's kind of like Morris Marina and stuff from the kind of sort of 70s, and it's just like, I guess that is vintage now. So there are people who kind of do kind of take the, I mean, Morris Marinas, I mean, they were never anything special when they were new.
I could say it was when you see like the progression of man type photos. There's one for it's the BMW, either the 3 Series or the 5 Series, and it showed it from like the late 70s and then through the 80s and then the 90s and through to 2007, I think, or something like that. So that the progression of the different models as it went along, and then underneath it, it just said had the same number of cars and similar years, and it just said Lada, always been perfect, because it was just the same model the whole way through.
Nuts.
Just the same fridge.
If it ain't broke,
yeah, absolutely,
it's right.
Yeah, and well, you see coming out of some of the, I think it's getting less so now, but you kind of sort of see, particularly say, coming out of some of the Korean car manufacturers or Malaysian car manufacturers, where they're just using essentially a slightly modified 10-year-old design from a Western manufacturer. And that looks a bit familiar.
Yeah,
but that badge doesn't fit.
Dacia or Dacia or however you're supposed to pronounce it. That's basically just old Renaults. There's quite a few like that where they just take all the old, as soon as they can buy the patterns and the molds cheap enough, they just do that and patch
I've seen them doing
up.
the same with bikes as well. There's like a lot of import bikes that are based off the old Harleys, and it's surprising because the look, till you get up close, the look spot on, and then you notice, hold on, that doesn't say Harley. What's that?
Harley Davidson.
Yeah. Harley Davidson.
Yeah.
I remember listening to a podcast a few years ago talking about, I think it was an Indian manufacturer that had made essentially a Jeep Wrangler, put a different badge on it, obviously, but because they didn't sell it anywhere other than India, they couldn't be done for the copyright. Or something like that. There was something really kind of sort of strange about it. They were essentially getting away with designing something, or not designing something, using a design that was essentially from a big manufacturer, but because their market was entirely homegrown, they couldn't be done. But if they tried to sell it in the States, they'd have been done for. But get away with these things.
It's fascinating. It's one of those, the worry though I would have with something like that to be, if they wanted to, then we've just wiped out instantly. If they ever caught wind that we're turning over more that they am now with their design.
I mean, that's that sort of thing does happen, doesn't it, to a certain degree? With I mean, even stuff like the music industry and things like that. Where a remix by someone else ends up being more popular than the originals, or things like that. That sort of thing does happen and does kind of make you think. I think
it does. It's fascinating. There's that the Dua Lipa. I think there's a court case going on at the moment. She got a song. I don't know enough about it. That an old reggae group is suing her because they basically say that she ripped off their original song from like the 70s or whatever. And there's a guy on YouTube. I feel terrible because I can't think what his channel name is, but he's like a music producer and also dabbles with like lore and what have you. And he breaks down the notes and like the rhythm and the beat and then the harmonics. And so from a technical standpoint, is it a copy? And then from a feeling standpoint, is it a copy as well? And it kind of determined with this that it's not a physical, like, note for note copy and the beat's different and everything. He says, but you can't deny the sound the same. But in a court of law, you can't fight on it just sounds like it. But it's interesting because when he wrote it on paper, it was like the miles apart. But you play them and I'm like, yeah, that's definitely come from that one. You can tell. It's fascinating.
Well, it was like was it Led Zeppelin? There was a big case with them. I think it was Led Zeppelin. Maybe somebody else. I'm not that big a music guy. But there was a big court case because I think something like Stairway to Heaven or something like that was essentially claimed to be a rip-off of somebody else's song from a band that had been a supporting act in their early days.
Oh, right.
So it was kind of like, yeah,
Wouldn't surprise me, yeah. I mean, there was a friend of my dad's, because my dad's a record producer and musician for years and stuff, and a friend of his was in a band, I think, in the 70s or whatever, and he'd done this song that ended up being sampled by DJ Shadow, I think, or one of those, and he got a half decent song out of it, did reasonably well with it and stuff, and they had a bit of a legal tussle to try and get a bit of sort of royalties and rights for it and that kind of stuff. There's a fantastic documentary, I think we shouted out before, called Everything's a Remix. Kind of goes into a lot of that sort of stuff, and it's surprising just how, like the story of Star Wars being, taken from like a handful of other films that, Lucas either really liked or was involved with beforehand, or, things like this. There's like loads of these things that are just ideas that have been curated either intentionally or unintentionally, just sort of, like, oh, that.
Have you seen the one with it's a comedian who basically has worked out that Harry Potter is the Star Wars story?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
because you've got this orphan who's taken in by an aunt and uncle who won't share the fact that there's this idea of magic, and then you get a stranger, big stranger turn up and then start sharing the magic, and it just kind of carries on.
It's a fantastic parallel, and there's also stuff like the like I've shown you boys before, but the I found the game for Avatar years ago, and how that is basically the same as like Pocahontas and Dances with Wolves, and a handful of others. It's just exactly the same story, just different characters, different planet, different setting. So
I'm losing the number, but I'm sure that there's a set number of stories that like humankind have ever told, and every single thing that you've ever seen can fit into one of those stories.
Yes,
I think it's like a ridiculously small number as well for
it's kind
iterations.
of less than I can't remember. It's like I got a feeling it's kind of something like 7, 9, or it's almost like a prime number,
like
almost
that,
13.
Yeah.
It's
so you've got stuff like the haunted house, and there's just like a like you say, it's a really surprisingly small group that everything fits into it. One or maybe two of first act fits into this type, and then
Yeah, one of the best ones is like my girlfriend. She's a big fan of like Christmas movies. So whenever it gets to that time of year, she's like, "Oh, there's a new Christmas movie on Netflix." I'm like, "Let me guess. Somebody from a small town has made it big in the city, and now they're going back home for Christmas, and they've been single, but then they're going to find love back in the hometown, and then they're going to settle down where they started off." She's like, "Yeah, okay, yeah." Literally every single one is. It doesn't matter what it is. It's always that plot. Always.
Which of the same 7 actors are in this Christmas movie?
Yeah. Yes.
Sounds like just like Die Hard. Yeah.
Yeah. It's there though. It's there. He just needs to open a bookshop and it's like finished. It's complete.
There you go.
Of
course, our friend John D. Harvey's jumped in with the 7.
YouTube videos, maker videos. I mean, there's only a certain there's an awful lot that follow exactly the same principles when they're being made.
You've got make a thing that goes right and make a thing that doesn't go right.
Yeah.
Two options, really.
But you also get the kind of let's do it from far away, the kind of sort of CCTV approach, or let's do it with the kind of David Attenborough, let's get right in close approach. It's sort of mix it up a bit.
Is it ever possible to make something truly new? It's like the further we go through time, the more difficult it's going to be, I feel, because the making a box.
The population as well, the sheer quantity of people. There's got to be some, there's got to be something original left in there, but so saturated with constant barrage of everything.
It's hard to set on what makes originality, really, because when you're sitting in a position of I want to make a table, well, a table is clearly a table. If you do too much to alter it, it's no longer a table. So here's your parameters. Just pick the order that it goes together, and then that's original. That's it.
It's kind of a minimum of able to stand on its own.
So 3 legs.
So minimum 3 legs, or one big, large, flat leg, and then a surface to put stuff on. If it's got a back bit, it's a seat.
It's a seat. Yeah. But it is though. It's very difficult. It's I remember there was like court cases, I think, when it was first coming about with the resin table kind of phase and like river tables, because somebody had trademarked it. I might be completely making this up, but
you're completely right. Yeah, you're not allowed to call it an epoxy river table.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure that there was something about that. There'd been numerous people before the person who had done it as well, and it's kind of that's making stuff yeah,
pretty much. Just trademark chairs and tables and
I'm in the process of trademarking magenta, so I shouldn't really be speaking like that. But yeah, so I've got the lawyers lined up. Anybody who starts using it.
Well, see, that's the other thing. To the best of my understanding, is things like trademarks are only really, and same with patents as well. They're only really worth anything if you actually actively enforce them as well.
Yeah, definitely. I was looking at it's been years now. I designed a pair of sawhorses, which I believed was already a thing. Like I just got this design in my head and I thought they must exist. So I just made them and I put a video out. And then everyone was like, take this video down now and get that design protected. And I was like, okay. Of course, I got really excited. Like, oh, what have I got here? I've got like an invention here. And I spoke to a few people. I did speak to a few people. And so far, there's nothing that we've been able to find that matches that design. And it's like, I was getting advice, get it patented. And it's like thousands of pounds to get a patent. And then, like you say, unless you got the money to back you to fight it, you're wasting your time. So I got the design protected, which is like 50 quid, cost that much. It's something, at least it enables you to, when you're talking to companies, to say it's protected. That's kind of what I've got. Yeah, it's like you can't make it blue because I've got it blue on my design or whatever, like that sort of thing. But yeah, like you say, unless you can actually take a team of lawyers and hundreds of thousands of pounds backing you, the next guy, like guy next door, could be making it. You ain't going to do nothing about it.
Absolutely.
I think sometimes if you haven't got the ability to think, right, okay, I'm either going to make very quickly or I have already got enough money to be able to really stamp on any kind of infringement of this. I'm just going to get in quick, sell as many as I can as quickly as possible, and then think of my next idea. I think it's all you. I mean, it's so much now that if you do come up with an idea and if you try and protect it, there will be somebody somewhere in the world who is going to go, yeah, we can build that, and we can build it cheaper, and we will sell it with a slightly different name. We'll change a few letters in the name so that it's still the same sound, but it's we'll use a K instead of a C, or something like that, and we'll use kind of an O and a couple of U's instead of an O and a W, and we'll put it out there anyway, and we'll put it out at a tenth of the cost because we're using essentially slave labour, and we've got the ability to access markets with huge amounts of material at a cheap price. So it's kind of like, I think, just work on an idea, unless you kind of license it to someone who has got the money to protect it.
To be fair, depending on what it is, there are certain systems in the world that it doesn't really matter whether you license it or protect it or patent it or not.
Still
anyway.
going to,
It's where marketing becomes it's weight and gold, really, because I like watching Dragon's Den. Like, I really enjoy watching Dragon's Den, and especially when it is kind of a business that's an invention, like a new product. And of course, they always batten down the fact of, well, I think there was one guy I knew done biodegradable chewing gum. So it's like, because it's a mess all over the street. So if people are still spitting the chewing gum out over time, it'll just dissolve basically.
Yeah.
And they were saying, well, what's stopping Wrigley's just going out and making their own or whatever? And he's like, well, we've been pushing that we'll be the first to market with this product. Hopefully we'll get enough public backing that they'll know our brand and they'll want to continue to support our brand regardless of what the big guys do. And it was really well thought out. I haven't seen it though, and it's one of those I'm waiting to see. Is Wrigley's now just going to release a biodegradable chewing gum, and you never even think about this guy who
buy it
done
up? Yeah. I suppose there's a moral implication to that, though, isn't there? I suppose it's in the same way that adding safety features to anything kind of releases that or reduces that ability to, or that requirement to think. It's the same thing. If you then know that you can spit chewing gum out, are we just going to see more chewing gum spat out because people know it just degrade and they can't be asked to go to the bin?
Yeah. It is, and it's like that source stop argument as well. The safety mechanism of, if you get your things a bit too close, don't worry, it'll save you. You get lapsy daisy, and I've seen a lot of videos since with stuff like that, and it's scary to see. And it's right though, because as soon as you're given that bit of comfort of what I'm doing is no longer either dangerous or harmful to the environment, where's the incentive for people to be polite and conscientious and wary of the surroundings?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same with cars, isn't it? You look at a modern car. The 17-year-old now learning to drive in a modern car that's got, it's almost fly-by-wire. Everything's computer controlled. It won't let you do certain things, and it's all the safety features for everything. Then they've got no idea how to use that car or use another car in a different scenario, different situation. I remember passing my test and then driving an absolute wreck of a vehicle. So I know how to do various bits and bobs, and how to drive in adverse weather conditions with a not super safe car, or how to gauge your speed when your speedo cable's snapped and you're going through trying to make your way home with no speedo and trying to work out how fast you're going so you don't get flashed by a speed camera, or when your brakes fail or whatever.
It's right that the car I've got now is like the first car that I've had that's got parking sensors, and I've become 100% reliable on them. It's like, of course, you're looking, you're aware, but it's like, I know I can I'll go till the beep and then I'm fine. I just wish that they need to make them customizable, because I want it to not beep and just have woo, 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 woo. I want to do that, and I'm going to patent that idea as well. Come on,
Like
come on, load the room.
Keep going. Change the voice.
Yeah, that's it.
Hey, up now! Stop what you're doing.
Yeah. Whoa. Go on, one more. Oh, too much.
I think it'd be nice to have a calibrated sensor that actually gives you kind of a readout of the distance.
Yeah.
So it's 6 inches, 4 inches, 3 inches, 2 inches. Yeah, I think that would be quite.
Crunch.
That would be good.
Yeah, crunch.
That's the single-use parking sensor, isn't it? It's just
with bumper. Yeah.
Yeah. Or just glue a few Coke cans on the back of your car or something, just to So you can just listen out for something that's not going to do too much damage. But
the school I used to work at had garage for the minibuses, and if you were kind of parking in the garage, because sometimes they were out already and sometimes they weren't, you had to park it in the garage. The garage was really quite small. They literally had kind of foam on the kind of the sides of the door, and then they had somebody'd hung a nut on a bit of string from the ceiling. So if you touched the windscreen, you knew you were in the right place, because if you were too far forward, obviously you'd hit the wall. If you were too far back, then the door would come down on they had roller doors, and it was just like, yeah, I don't really like the idea of driving into this swinging nut. I know it's just a swinging nut, but it's also a steel nut with sharp corners.
Yeah, my uncle used to do it with a tennis ball. That was at least
a much more sensible approach to take. But it's not all people are sensible. Yeah, particularly, I don't know, in schools.
I think not all people could be expanded quite significantly.
Very much so.
Having experienced quite a few of them. Andy, we've had a sensible question from Soph.
Have we?
We have.
Yeah, oh yes, we did, yes. We've also had Tom's asked whether it was proper inches or man inches. Yes, Soph has asked a sensible question, which I did respond, which we haven't actually done the intro yet. Yeah, I mean, who does intros? But that was, what projects are next for Joe?
Next projects, I've been basically sorting out my work area more than anything. So I've just done a desk, finally finished. I'm going down the minimalist route, because up until then I was just clutter everywhere and I could never find anything. So I've just finished. The best way I can describe it is like a shelf drawer thing. It's going to sit on my desk underneath my monitor, and it'll maintain
a sexy monitor stand. That's what you've made.
Basically, but I've got the monitor on an arm, so it's it's not even sitting on this shelf. But I can put trinkets on there. I can put fake plants, something a bit like that, maybe. Add a bit of je ne sais quoi. And then I'll have a drawer to put all my wires in and SD cards and all that stuff. But then I'm also making a stand wall hanger for my laptop. And I think I've designed a new design that I haven't been able to find anywhere, at least. So you might have seen that you can get stands to put your laptop in to slightly angle it up to make it more ergonomic, when you're typing on it. Mm-hmm. And I've also seen mounts that you can get for putting them on the wall. Well, I'm hoping that the design I've come up with is 2-in-1, so I can hang it on the wall and take it off and use it on my desk if I want to. So that's kind of the next couple of things that I've got coming up. Pretty boring, but a kind of essential work productivity enabler, I hope.
Yeah, essential routine maintenance.
That's it. Yeah. Clear desk, clear mind.
Sounds good. I've seen a couple of sort of things like that with kind of you get kind of videos and there's a subreddit or there's various subreddits on which kind of have just people's desks and how they're arranged. I've seen a couple of sort of designs, particularly for the Macs, where you kind of have it closed up. You just plug in a couple of cables and you can then just run a monitor, and it's your CPU, your server, or for want of a better phrase, instead of a tower unit, and it's just sitting there. The screen's closed. It's just it's upright. It's charging. I think that can look quite nice. That sounds good.
That's literally the setup I've got now. So this is just I'm sat at my desk, I've got my monitor, and then it's running off my laptop. But yeah, it's kind of the portability aspect of it as well, to be able to basically take your full desktop with you wherever you might be. That's been a godsend, to be honest. But just that, getting in that mindset of I'm going to keep a clear workspace. It's somewhere that I'm actually happy to go and sit down. I kind of see it when you've just finished cleaning your workshop and everything's in its place and it's just tidy and you can see the floor. That project that you go and start is the best project ever. floor. It does exist. It's there. I've heard that it's there.
Yeah, I found some. I found a small
You got a
patch.
bit.
You have.
You got a patch. That's it.
You
If
have
you
to
can
put a
fit your
foot-
foot into it, that's it. To the foot test, it's fine. But it does. It makes a difference. If you've got a nice work area, I think you get a lot more done, and you're a lot more positive about going into that space. So if you're dreading, I've got to go and shift all that lot off the desk before I can get anything done, you're not going to do it.
I think
you won't do it.
that is the key, because that's if you've got a lot of stuff kind of going on in your life anyway, and you've got a very sort of narrow window to go and do something. If you know that you've got to then, do a 15-minute job, but it's going to take you half an hour beforehand to prep and move stuff and find spaces for this crap and clean that off, and you just, well, I know I definitely just
Another
don't get
10
around
minutes to
doing
find
those
the
things.
tools you need because they're not in the right space.
Yeah,
Absolutely, yeah. So I've been trying to get myself out of that habit of having that, trying to declutter and get rid of a load of crap to just sort of, think about what I can actually do and what I will actually do. I've been throwing out old started projects and future finished projects that never quite, or things that have now become obsolete in the last 5 years because it's taken me 6 years to realise I was never going to actually finish the thing.
I know. I was telling Joe and Jamie beforehand, but for the benefit of the audience, I went into the Tinkerage this afternoon looking for a tool, to just a watch strap replacement tool, which I have. I didn't find it, but when I opened the door to the Tinkerage, during the storms the other weekend, I hadn't been in the Tinkerage since before the storms. And I opened up, and they were just kind of empty, really useful boxes. I've got some of the sort of sets of stacking ones with the little boxes that are kind of 10 centimeters by 6 centimeters by kind of 5.
Inch and a half.
Yeah, something like that. They're kind of, and they were just all over the floor. Luckily, nothing in them. They were quite waiting to have some stuff put in them. It was just like all these empty boxes. The lids are scattered everywhere. The things on top of it, and that was on top of my angle grinder box was open from having cut a piece of angle iron out of the garden a few weeks ago, and it was just like close the door.
We should explain for our overseas listeners, when Andy says the bad storms, we mean the bit of rain and some wind that we had.
strong enough to blow over the plastic chairs in your garden, basically.
Yeah. Well, did you see that wheelie bin that was blowing up? Not blowing up, but was caught in enough.
Flying, wasn't it? In Plymouth.
Yeah, it's flying, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I saw our next door neighbour's trampoline flying into their next door neighbours, the other side. At one point,
It's like a mate of mine. God, sorry.
Go on, go on.
This is going to be terrible now. I was going to say, mate of mine, he was worried about the caravan he's got parked in his drive because, like, last Wednesday he didn't have one.
Yeah. Our trampoline's it's been stuck in the same place for so long. The grass is literally. You're supposed to use ground anchors with a big trampoline.
It's tied itself down, isn't it?
Yeah, and so you should get. I mean, I've got some somewhere. In one of the sheds, and literally they're just kind of metal hooks that you kind of hammer into the ground over the metal bars in order to hold them down. So ours is, it's just been in the same place for so long. We've got clay soil, so when it gets wet, and it's towards the part of the garden that gets really wet because we're on a bit of a slope, and it just like it's so embedded into the ground from a combination of kids over multiple years bouncing up and down on it even when it's wet, so it's kind of it bounced into the sort of ground and it's sort of dried over. It's just like to remove it, because we're actually sort of trying. I've got it on Marketplace at the moment because we want to get rid of it, and it's just like buy must help come and remove because it's literally stuck into the ground.
Ours was very much like that. We finally dismantled ours Well, months ago now, but back into summer last year, and that was the same sort of thing of trying to dig the trampoline out enough to be able to just, because all the perishable stuff on the trampoline had perished, so it was just basically the frame and a load of rusty springs. Once you dug it all out and peeled all the perishable stuff off it.
It makes you think, like, I like watching like the archaeological programs, and I always wonder, like, you watch them dig up like an old Roman like road and monastery and bathhouse, and it's like, I get that it was years and years ago, but how did it get buried under all that stuff? And it's like, well, do you think in years to come there'll be like modern archaeologists digging and be like, there's a lot of circle formations in residential area. I wonder what they was meant to be. And it's just the trampolines that just got ate by the lawns over years and years and years. And just a rusty spring Stonehenge in everyone's garden.
As we all know, there's this sort of current situation in Europe. It's really very, very unpleasant. I'm generally trying to avoid, but it does sort of stir back memories of kind of sort of some of the Cold War stuff for those of us that are old enough to remember when the Cold War was quite an active thing. And there was a thing that used to go around. We were literally taught, and there were even kind of public service announcement type advert type things on TV, telling you what to do in the event of nuclear attack. And this thing went kind of sort of around, obviously not via the internet because this is pre-internet, in the kind of sort of the early 80s. In the event of a nuclear attack, you should get together with a sort of group of you in a circle, so that when they kind of essentially you get vaporized, jump in the air as you get vaporized. So there'd be this distinctive pattern left in the ground for archaeologists in the future to come and investigate.
I'm not sure is that what you're thinking of in that moment?
Exactly. Yeah, it's just like, how or why did anyone think of this?
Surely you need 4 pints of beer, some peanuts, and then you lie down with a towel behind your head. Is that not the appropriate?
Ideally, yeah.
It makes you think though of like in Pompeii, like some of the poses that people have been found in Pompeii, and you kind of think impending doom is on the way. Let's have a bit of a laugh here. Like let's go out in style.
Nothing left to work. Yeah, nothing left to do. But let's see what we can leave behind.
There's some fantastic positions that people have been found in. I shall leave it at that.
Yeah.
Oh, it doesn't bear thinking about, really, does it? But yeah, let's change the subject. I think, Joe. I mean, it's almost an introduction. Yeah, I think you're possibly the first, maybe second, but definitely, I think possibly the first TV star that we've had on.
I'll take it. Yeah. I don't know about the star bit. I have been on television. I was pleased that my first television debut wasn't Crime Watch, as was probably predicted. But
you may both, mate.
It was brilliant. It was a fantastic experience, and I've been properly recognised twice now. So that's official.
Out in the street,
actually in public, like real people that don't watch YouTube. And people who aren't at Maker Central at that moment in time.
Oh, you're Joe off the telly.
Yeah. So that's the classification.
That must be a little bit bizarre. I mean, at Maker Central, you kind of expect people to kind of come up to you and go, "Hey, you're Joe," and stuff like that. But I mean,
more of a hope than an expectation.
Well, yeah, hope. I've got a bag full of stickers that I'm hoping to offload at some point. But no, the difference with Maker Central is you've spoke to all these people for years and years and years. You've never actually met them in person. So it's that. Oh yeah, are you the circle and the square profile picture? Is that you? So you've got that expectation of these are people that I've made friends with, I've never actually met, and I'm going to bump into them at some point. So yeah, but no, it's been strange. It has been weird. Like I say, it's only been a couple of times. The one I was in Costa, and I was just sat there, and then this lady come on and say, was you on that woodworking program? I was like, yeah, I was. And she's like, oh, I really like the bed you made. I was like, oh, thank you. And that's it. But yeah, it's nice. It's nice. It is nice.
That was a good bed. I thought that was a good design.
It's I was gutted with it. The fact that I couldn't get close to finishing. Honestly, like the program itself, like you had a time limit to what you was able to do. And of course, we was all up against it. And the bed was the very first project, so it was the first thing we was making, and we didn't realise just how much the power of TV would hinder you. So you got given a set time limit, which would have been against it without any kind of interruptions and just a regular, like, get on with it sort of thing. But with the magic of TV, I'm genuinely not exaggerating, it was like every 10, 15 minutes you had to stop so they could talk to other people because the power tools made too much noise.
Of course, yeah.
And they didn't stop the clock. And we didn't realise that this was going to be happening. It was like, yeah, we'll get that. They'll have like the introduction, what the challenge is going to be. They'll have the judging. They'll probably come and say how you're getting on. Yeah, but it was like, right, judges, I'm going to talk to Joe now. So everybody stop for a bit, look like you're doing stuff. Just don't make any noise, and then we'll come round. Well, in the first episode, there's like 8 of us. I want to say 8. I hope there was 8. 8 of us. So that adds up, and it's multiple times throughout the day them coming to talk to you. And it's like, I got kicked out of the workshop on the first day because the bed that I made was mainly made out of plywood. So I was just cutting sheets of plywood with a jigsaw. And you can imagine the noise of that. It was just constant. And it's like, Joel, how much more have you got to do with that? I'm like, another day. And it's like, can you go outside? It's always outside all the time on that one. I missed off, and it was good to watch it on telly to see what actually happened because I was outside.
That itself must be quite an interesting kind of thing to kind of, because obviously you're there, you're seeing things from your perspective. Obviously, you're seeing other people being talked to. You're seeing these other projects being made, but then to actually kind of watch it as a finished program must be quite. You're seeing extra things. You're seeing perhaps.
It was fascinating. I think it's a unique one as well because making stuff, your head is literally just on what you're doing. So even though you've got other things going on around you, you're not able to kind of sit back and watch what others are doing. You just get little snapshots here and there, and you'll hear things, and it tended to be when we'd stop for lunch, when they'd come around and judges would talk. So you can't really do anything. You're eyeing up what other people are doing. But you'd just be head down, and you'd look up, and suddenly someone's got a bed frame together, and them bringing in bedding, and I'm still cutting this plywood, and it can be quite daunting. But it was funny watching it back because you remember things that happened, like funny things that people had said, or like something fell over, and you think, oh, they'll definitely show that, and it doesn't get shown, and you're like, oh, they've missed so much. But then you see things that you never saw in the first when you was there, and it's like, I didn't know that happened. Yeah. I didn't see that. And seeing the judges, because they'd got clips of the judges talking about your projects as you're going along, we didn't see or get any kind of insight to that at all. So in that first episode, I mean, I think everybody feels this way, but I genuinely thought, I'm gone. I've made a fool of myself here. It's not going to be up to scratch. I'm done. And I was standing there ready for me to be the one to go. And then I watched it back, and the judge was like, oh, I actually like Joe's design. He's a bit behind with time, but I think it's coming together. And it's like, I didn't need to stress as much as I was stressing, and I wish that I knew that. But it's nice to get that insight. And like you say, I think, obviously, it's my first real like TV show to be part of, being able to see how they went about like setting up and filming, because we was in a workshop that didn't exist 7 days prior to us being there. So it was literally a field, and we just saw it just
So did you see that sort of side of things? Were you there for that?
We turned up, and because it was during the height of lockdown when we filmed it, so we had to be there 7 days before we could start filming, and we was quarantined. So we caught a glimpse as we was coming in that nothing was there. And then during quarantine, they was kind of keeping it a secret from us so they could get our initial reaction of wow, like with first time seeing it, and that was totally genuine. But the technicians that are like working there, they would go down during the day, and as them coming back, you'd be like hearing what they're doing. And they're like, oh, the side paneling's gone on now, and oh, the table saw combination machines have turned up, and it's like all this stuff is going to be there. And then we turned up, and we were like, this has just been made, and we're like, yeah, it's actually a big gazebo with wooden sides on. And you got inside, and it looked like it would have been there for donkey's years. It really did.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
It was good. It was a great team.
did you find it? I mean, obviously, that just seeing it from the production side, because up until fairly recently, you've been doing essentially video production work. So, did you find it informative from a kind of video production?
Oh, definitely. It was obviously a completely different way of doing things that YouTubers, content creators online would ever looking at doing stuff. But I was amazed by how much crossover there actually is. I think I'd kind of put a lot more weight behind what I was expecting. Clearly wasn't expecting like Hollywood production studios and all that kind of stuff. But when you boil it down to the basics, there was very little in terms of procedure to what you would just pick up your phone and film. The only thing I would say with them, they made sure that they had redundancies on absolutely everything. So like there's multiple cameras picking up that one thing because obviously they can't afford to lose that one shot. Different rigs. So I was expecting they'll just have one style of camera and that's going to be what everyone's kitting out with. And there's like 3 or 4 camera operators that have the same camera. But then there's also shooting on GoPros, which I genuinely didn't imagine. And then small DSLRs on like little gimbals that us YouTubers would be used to using.
Yeah.
And then
That's
being
quite
able to see that footage and it looked the same as the big cameras. Like it was really good.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the quality now of essentially DSLR type cameras and the action cam type things is so good. The technology has advanced so much in the last 5 years. Never mind the last 10, but certainly in the last 5 years, there's been massive achievements. And it's interesting to see now. I think Sony have released essentially a DSLR that is designed more for video than it is for stills. And so I think they've even got over the sort of half an hour recording time, but essentially it's a DSLR. Although it's a mirrorless system.
It's coming on leaps and bounds, and I do think that it's the online content creation side of things that is driving the market more than ever.
Yeah.
So like my camera that I've got, that's mirrorless camera now, and it's been like it's made such a huge difference to my workflow. I feel there's been a big upgrade to the actual look of my videos as well. But just that, I think you start shooting differently when you've got a different piece of kit in your hand, because it doesn't matter what you use, there's always some kind of limitation. And I do think that limitation is good. And I think that it's similar to if you're given an open brief for a project, your mind can't focus on any one thing. As soon as you start putting barriers in place of, right, it's got to be a table, it's got to be made for less than 100 quid, it's got to incorporate still legs, you can narrow in on an idea. And it's very similar with cameras. If you've got a camera that does absolutely everything, it's like, all right, what am I going to do in this situation? Whereas if you've got a limitation of, I've only got that lens, or I'm in a confined space and I need to make sure it changes your style and you have to adapt to that. And I noticed that that's what they did a lot on set of the TV show. The fact that they had to work around a dusty environment played a big part. How close they would get to machinery. Like they was wanting to come in for these really close shots, and then you'd start it up and they'd whoop them back. They didn't realise what this tool actually did. A big one was the mics as well, the sound. They didn't realise just how noisy Power Tools was going to be, like genuinely. So it was originally, we'd got like little lav mics taped to our chests underneath our clothes, and we started with those, and then quickly was like, no, we got to stop. So we stopped and we kept those mics on. Then we was given the Britney mics, so we had like the little tiny lav mics, and they literally put it so it was, I want to say like it was in your mouth. It was like touching the corner of your mouth. And then they've got booms as well. So when they'd be talking to you, they'd bring a boom in. So they've got 3 mics picking you up. But then, of course, you've got to have your PPE. So anytime you put a face mask on, you've got to try and tuck this mic into your face mask. And then if you've got the shield and the goggles and the ear protectors, your mic could fall off and it'd be like, Joe, wait. And then they'd come and you'd literally stand still and they'd be fiddling and putting it all in. I'm like, is that all right? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, I've got to put my mask on. Oh, why don't you tell us? Got to put your mask on. I'm like, so, but yeah, it was just nice to watch. I think if you're kind of a bit of a camera geek, which I am, it was just nice to see the kit that they was using and then just watching them work. It's inspiring.
I was going to say,
it must be a massive learning experience for the production team. I guess the Great British Bake Off production team, they've probably been together now for a long time. They know all the angles, they know the sound in a marquee with cookers and the like, and that's probably a much easier environment than a workshop. And you had some pretty horrible weather too, so you've got heavy rain, you've got tools, like you say, PPE. It's all a massive learning experience for them.
It was a lot of the production team actually worked on Bake Off as well, and then of course the show was presented by Mel Giedroyc, who presented Bake Off, and she was speaking to us, and she said she genuinely came into it thinking it was going to be a very similar kind of setup to Bake Off. The fact that we'd do a bit of woodworking and then we'd have a bit of waiting around that she could come and have a chat, and she's like, I did not realise that this was you flat out to get this stuff done. And we're like, yeah, we haven't got time for a chat. Like, need to crack on. And she tried her best to help people. There was one clip, Charlie. So it was in the bed challenge. It was the first episode, and Mel was helping her hold a piece steady while she fixed it in place. And she applied too much pressure, and Mel ended up snapping this main focal point to the bed. And from that point on, she was always like, I want to help, but I don't want to help because I know I'm going to make things worse. And so she'd come in when you'd be doing sanding, because it's like, well, I can't ruin sanding. I'll come in when I'm doing that. But she came into it with a completely different thing of, it's going to be nice and chill woodworking, something that people do on the weekend to relax. It's going to be a nice laid back environment. And then it's like, everyone's, where's that gonna?
Bit of work, sticking it in the oven for a little bit.
Yeah. It was.
Unless you got kind of waiting for finish to dry, there's no standing around, is there?
Well, you say that. Half on us never even got to touch the finishes. It was that close to getting stuff done. I was lucky if I'd done any sanding. So like, especially with the bed, I'd got gaps everywhere, so I'd mixed up wood glue and sawdust and packed it all in, and I'd started sanding it back, and it was like, you got 5 minutes left. I'm like, okay. I was gutted with that first episode though, when I was saying about missing things out, because genuinely, hand on heart, when they was doing the final countdown, I was literally putting in a plywood base. Like, instead of doing slats, I was like, I'll just whack plywood in, it's quicker. And I was putting it in, it was slightly too big. So I was whacking it with a mallet to get it to seat properly. And it was like literally 3, 2, 1. And that last whack on one, it dropped into place and you heard it clunk and fall flat. And I'm like, oh my God. And the technicians came and they're like, pick me up and all this kind of stuff, because I was really struggling. And I told, like, not everyone, because I had the NDA, but like my family and like a few close friends, I don't mind saying. I told them, like, that's going to be the end shot. I guarantee that will be the end shot, because it was just perfect on that one. And then, of course, the beauty of editing, it's like, you've got 3 minutes to go, and then bang, my plywood's gone. I'm like, that was on the last second way of the show, and it with 3 minutes left. Like, so there's lots of little things like that. And I'm watching and I'm seeing, well, Tim's bed's done, but that one isn't together. Like, they had to splice it in different sections.
I can't remember which episode it was, but I noticed that there was one point where there was kind of clearly, I think it was something like there was somebody made something and it was in a different state in the background than the next shot suggested it should be.
Yeah.
So it was like they were further ahead in the previous scene that was concentrated on somebody else than it was when they went to their scene, which came up next.
Yeah. It happened a lot.
That sort of stuff, like, quite a few people in my family have been in various aspects of showbiz sort of type stuff. So from growing up with that kind of stuff around, it's always been like, continuity. So as a kid, I was like trained to spot continuity errors in stuff. So now I can't sit and watch a TV show without just automatically seeing all these, like, I think, the level on someone's drink going up and down between scenes, and all that kind of stuff. It's just, yeah.
There was a funny one recently, because I made like a lot of friends with the cast and crew and all that kind of stuff. And one of the showrunners, she like updates her social media on the shows that she's working on and shows clips of what she can. And she'd been and she brought like these fancy smoothies for everyone on this set, like that is working on, and had put the drinks down like by this wall, ready for when they had a break. Not realizing that wall was in shot of what there was filming. It was like just out and about. So those smoothies had to remain there all day for continuity. So she brought all these fancy smoothies. Everyone was looking forward to these drinks. And because there was in the one shot, they had to remain there for the rest of the day. So they went completely to waste.
Nightmare.
Oh dear.
Or it's like the water bottle in Game of Thrones and the Starbucks coffee cup in this like medieval castle.
Plane flying overhead.
Yeah, the white van in thingy, Braveheart.
Ben-Hur. I think there's like a red car that goes along behind, and someone's wearing a gold wristwatch.
I think there's a wristwatch in Ben-Hur as well, if I remember rightly.
Oh, is that?
It's a long time since I've seen it.
And like sky dishes on Sherlock Holmes, just looking at all the sky dishes on the houses.
Did you learn? I mean, obviously you learned stuff about kind of the workings of a TV show. Did you kind of learn or develop any sort of skills or things about your making while you were there?
I think so, and I think it's probably something that's a bit more out the box, because a lot of people might say, "Oh, well, I picked up like different tips and tricks," and you always get that. But one of the biggest things that I've learned is how I use my time, and it became quickly apparent that I waste a lot of time, and not even in the more traditional sense of wasting time not doing anything, but wasting time focusing on the wrong things. So I kind of went in thinking it's going to be the details that will make the difference. So I'd got in my head that's where my focus is going to be. Well, of course, if you haven't got the basics done to get you to those detail points, there's no point even focusing on them. So it took me the first couple of episodes to get that out of my head. So when I got to the second episode, it was making a doll's house. So I'd gone from making a king size like double bed, which was really physically intense, a lot of like heavy lifting, to something that's now a lot smaller and more manageable. So I rushed ahead and I got all the pieces cut ready for assembly really quickly. And I'm like, I'm miles ahead here. I'm going to focus on this Perspex bent window. So I hate to say how many potential hours, I'm not even joking, hours I spent trying to bend this Perspex, because I was that cocky in my head of I've got everything cut, I've only got to put it together. So this is going to be the bit that makes it stand out. So I'm doing it, tried to fit it in, broke it, tried another piece, broke that, then scrambling to try and find alternatives to this Perspex to manage to get this really thin like acetate stuff to put in instead. And I'm doing all this, and then as always the time gets announced. It's like, oh, I better put it together now. So I put it together, and then I've run out of time to do like the finishing painting and do my little extras, and it's because I'd spent all that time on something that didn't matter at all. I've wasted it. And I started to think after that of all the projects I do for myself at home when there isn't a time limit, where I spend most of my time is on things that don't really matter. So I've learned a hell of a lot from that. Focus on what's important, and then once that's done, then have a little think about the added extras and the little tweaks here and there. And it has made a difference. I've learned a lot.
That's cool. I think it's good, I think, to be able to kind of pick up those kind of those bits of knowledge that actually can make quite big changes to how we do things. But it does take maybe like that challenging environment to make that happen.
It does, and it's knowing as well that from when it's just you doing something, it's only you. Like, you will only ever see that process. Seeing what other people are doing in that same amount of time, and it's hold on a sec, I'm doing something drastically wrong here because I'm working flat out, I'm sweating my guts out, sort of thing. I'm done in. I'm not sitting back and they're miles ahead of me. What am I doing wrong? It's like, oh, because all I'm doing is messing with this perspex, and I'm actually putting a doll's house together. Maybe that's what's wrong. Like, so it does it hits you when you're able to see other people in that same environment making the same kind of thing.
Is it? It's the overall process of both the building side and the filming side. Has that changed how you make your videos since then?
I think it has. I think I've become more aware of what's worth showing and what can be left out. I've always gone down the route of, if I think it's where it'll potentially stumble people, include it. If it's something that I've done wrong, include it. From when I was watching the show and like following along on Twitter and what people were saying on Twitter, they didn't show a lot of the making, which is disappointing to some extent, but it's also understandable that you've got an hour slot and you've got 8 projects going on at once. It's impossible to show every aspect. So it did have a feel of a magic, or they've done some cutting, it's done. We didn't really see how we went about that. So it's driven me more to at least include a lot more explanation into what I'm doing, so it's easier to follow. But also, if it is something that's still pretty basic and that you can take for granted as well, everybody knows that. Not everybody knows it. Everyone's got to start from somewhere. So however mundane it might seem, it's just have a throwaway comment about it, or bring it up a little bit later on, or just touching back on that what I've done. So yeah, I've gone down that route a lot more explanation, and a lot more laid back as well. I've been pretty rigid up until now, I think, and I'm starting to relax a lot more and enjoy the process, as opposed to I need to get this spot on, otherwise people will pull me up on it. I've got to that point now where it's, if I'm enjoying it, that's all that matters.
Yeah, that's exactly it, isn't it? It's that enjoyment and knowing that you're enjoying the process is sort of more engaging. I think more you get more out of it as a viewer. Then I think.
Well, you do. I think because a lot of people who either thinking about starting a channel or have started a channel in the early stages, you go through that real initial. I don't want to say that it feels like a job right out the bat, but the fact that when you're making stuff, it's usually to escape anything else that's going on, like whatever. Yeah. It's your escape from the world. It's your relaxation time. It's your hobby, and you enjoy what you're doing. Now that you're kind of putting a camera in front of you, and it doesn't matter if nobody watches it, just one person watches it. You got the eyes of the world on you now, potentially. Yeah. Everybody's going to watch every little mistake that you make. And you freeze up, and it's like, I've got to get this perfect, otherwise it's not worth even showing or doing. And it's hard to get that out of your mind. So the quicker that you can figure out, actually, no, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. And if anything, it's better. It's a lot better to show just who you are and what you do. And as soon as you get that point, I'm genuinely now back at a point where, as if I'm making without a camera on, and now I'm just talking to a mate who's might be interested in what I'm doing, rather than that's a camera that's watching my every move.
It's accessibility and inspiration, isn't it? You know, if you're doing something that doesn't turn out perfect, you're showing people that they can do that as well. You know, I think that's such a powerful thing to be able to kind of put out there.
Well, sometimes there's nothing worse than if you see somebody do something and it's perfect every single time, because then as soon as you try it for yourself and something goes wrong, it's automatically, it's me that's wrong.
Absolutely.
I just must not be able to do this. Whereas as soon as you see somebody who's made mistake after mistake after mistake, and then you've seen the end result, and it's like, it looked all right in the end. Oh, well, it doesn't matter. As long as it looks like what you want it to look like and it does what you want it to do, who cares how you got there? So yeah, I think the more that you can show, it's going to encourage more people to get into making in general, and all aspects of life. The more accessible it can be, the better.
I think it's one of the problems with social media, though, isn't it? Because there's so much, particularly maybe, for example, on Instagram, where there's everything's perfect. Everything has to be absolutely perfect, and maybe that's changing a little bit because Instagram's changing more to a video platform rather than a photo platform. But when it was as the photo platform, everyone's just picking that. Or not everyone. A lot of people are kind of taking the time to curate the picture they're using, getting maybe doing a little bit of editing, even if it's just in Instagram's own editor itself, in order to kind of just boost the light or increase the contrast. And so there's that kind of element of everything's sort of perfect. It's almost like kind of in fashion photography where they kind of you have a picture of a model. What you don't see is the pile of bulldog clips on the back of the outfit. They're holding it so that it looks just right on the front, because it's not actually fitted to the model. It's just kind of clipped in place. But it's they're only showing the image from one side.
It's showing the best self, isn't it? It's that.
This is it, and we've got that. There's that idea of we're comparing ourselves against people's best show reel. We're seeing on YouTube we're seeing videos that have been edited. The fact that cut was made 15 times, the piece of wood was replaced a dozen times because it splintered or it was in the wrong place. All that disappears in the edit. And so we get a lot of time we see people making things in a video that lasts 6 to 16 minutes normally. Somewhere in that bounds is the kind of where most videos tend to sit nowadays, and they're not showing the problems where all the glue dripped out and went all over the clamps, and actually it took twice as long. You see people kind of doing these sort of tricks with kind of a bit of they drop their clamped thing, and then all of a sudden the clamps just disappear. And it's great from a videographic point of view, but it doesn't show the fact that actually they had to chip several of the clamps off because the glue had seeped out and all over the clamps. And they'd had to
reglue it because
they'd had to scrape another pile off, or there was the joint that they'd actually forgotten to glue and that just fell apart, or it wasn't enough, and they had to redo it, and all those sort of things disappear. Or they're carving something and a nice big chunk, just like Mel breaking that bit off. It was nice to see that. Obviously, it was kind of like, oh no, poor Charlie, having that bit of a design breaking. But how often do we not see those things? And sometimes you get to kind of think that when somebody says, actually, I've made 2 of these. Well, you've only just shown one being made, so you actually made 2. So it was one the prototype really, and you've just shown the best bits of it. And sometimes you can spot that when somebody's kind of there's a particular cup you made, and you go, hang on, that had different grain the last time it was in that shot. They've obviously sort of changed
that bit of chip out that you couldn't have possibly recovered from seems to have miraculously disappeared on the next one. I mean, that was one of the most powerful things. Like growing up, I used to watch Norm Abrams on New Yankee Workshop and that kind of stuff, and I remember that there was one particular episode where he was talking about like how they do it all, and that was exactly that same sort of thing of like he was explaining like, when I'm making the one that you see on camera, I've made this at least once before. And this is quite often we've got the first one that we made as the thing that we refer to when I'm showing you I'm just about to make this bit. It's that kind of like, we'll make one off camera, work all the problems out. We might make 2 or 3 of them to make sure it works, and and realizing that kind of that magic of TV, or that show reel being exactly that, a curated show reel, like Andy said.
And it's a bit of a show, and I think people, particularly people starting out in YouTube, think that they have to be able to produce these wonderfully edited videos showing a fantastically made thing, perfectly lit, color graded, and all the kind of the like, and you don't.
Film stuff, have half decent audio. That's all you need.
It's all true that the audio makes such a massive difference. It's like people take it for granted far more than video. You can forgive pixelated, out of focus, shaky, all that lot, but if the audio's off, it scrambles your brain. So that's the one. Yeah. Get your audio right, and then the rest falls into place. I think it's okay,
weird, isn't it?
It does. It's funny. I think there was something. I like watching a lot of the science stuff on YouTube. There was one thing about how something as simple as your brain only needs to see like the 30 frames per second to be fooled into motion. But if you're like 0.001 of a second out of sync, you pick it up and you can't unsee it then. It is evolution.
When I used to do like animation at college. We were doing it at 12 frames a second, doing the animation stuff, and that was motion. Whereas now you've got the games industry, they're pushing 144 hertz monitors with or even higher, 200 hertz monitors with frame rates to match and stuff like that. And I remember all the big kind of hoo-ha when there was the cinema thing. It was Peter Jackson filming it at more than 24 frames a second, and you go to the cinema and everything just felt wrong because it was a higher frame rate and motion didn't look right. And you say it's weird what brains will pick up on, and what are those little kind of triggers that just ruin something, or you can't unfocus once you've seen it.
Definitely. It's like them the like optical illusions and stuff. There was one that I saw the other day. There was like a big blue dot and a small blue dot, and it's literally focus on the big blue dot and the small one disappears. And then you do that whole thing of this is a video or this is like a GIF, and it does genuinely. So you start focusing on the other one and it never goes anywhere. But it's fascinating.
Brains, particularly optics, are. I love optic illusions as well. I've books of them, and there's quite a lot online that you can kind of sort of dig into. And I like some of the colour ones, are the ones that always kind of amaze me, where you kind of, if something appears to be in a shadow, compare it to something that isn't in a shadow, and they can be the same colour, but they will appear different colours, because our brain says, well, if it's in a shadow, it can't be the same colour as the thing that's not in the shadow.
Yeah.
And if you then mask the shadow away, and it's the same colour, and it's fascinating how things like that work. I think it'd be quite interesting to sort of try and sort of build in optical illusions into sort of videos, really, as well. Sort of try and I think it's an easy way of doing that.
Just embed a magic eye into every video.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of right. Pause it here.
Yeah.
Now defocus your eyes.
A couple of frames just dotted around throughout the video, so you try to catch it and try and work out what it is.
Yeah. That was all the rage in the 90s. I found one of those when I was clearing out my shed the other day. The old C&I books and stuff. I could get it to the point where I could tell something had changed, and I could see depth, but I could never make out a shape or anything. And then you flick to the back. What was it? Oh, it's another elephant. Or it's
I used to love those. I got really, really into them. So I had a few of the books. I really, really enjoyed those.
Some people literally cannot do them. Physically cannot do them at all. It was a very, very long time ago I applied to the RAF. And one of the jobs that I applied for two jobs. One was education. The other was in photographic intelligence. And one of the tests that they do is to see whether you can actually do something like that, because they use a lot of stereoscopic, or they used to. I mean, it's probably changed. This is kind of again going back a long time ago. They use a lot of stereoscopic imaging because that gives an impression of depth. So literally, they fly over with kind of the spy planes and take off, but they take two lots of images at the same time. So, but that's from a slightly different angle. So then, when you view them stereoscopically, you can actually get that kind of three-dimensionality that you wouldn't get from just a single image. But some people, I mean, literally part of the thing was, some people cannot do those.
Yeah,
doesn't matter how much, and so that same, I guess, this genetic trait falls through into those, like the C&I pictures. You can look at what the image is in the back of the book and the answers to that sort of thing, and then look at it, and whatever happens, you'll never see
Still not get it. Yeah. It's interesting talking about the like stereoscopic stuff. My wife's got a stereoscopic camera that has 4 lenses on it. It's just like a really, really wide flat camera, and it does that whole sort of thing. So to give you these 3D photos. I don't think we've ever actually put any film in it though.
Yeah.
So those we saw it for like very little money and just went, oh my god, we need that, and then just stayed in a box somewhere for the last several years.
Oh, you got to give it a go. There was a lens that's been advertised from our camera. Canon have just released. It's a stereoscopic twin fisheye lens that fits onto a regular camera body. It's like
nice.
£2,500, literally £2,500 for this lens. So it's like never, ever, ever obtainable. But the fact that it exists and that it's there, and I've seen some of like the demos on YouTube, and it works surprisingly well. Like it genuinely works really well. But yeah, so you got to have a go. You got to at least try and
Do something with it.
I'm guessing it takes regular film, does it?
Yeah, old school, developable
35mm. Yeah,
35mm stuff. Yeah. I think I'd have to.
I can still remember. I sold them probably about 15, 20 years ago. I had one of those. I had a couple of different sort of things that I'd grown up with, and just literally sitting in tin doing nothing. One was one of those. I think they were called Stereo Viewmaster, and it had like a circular disc that you put into this viewer that kind of looked almost like the sort of the head of a binocular microscope. And you had a little lever on the side, and so the pairs of images were kind of at 180 degrees on this kind of sort of circle, and it would cycle around, and you'd kind of just hold it up to the light, and you literally, when you went places, touristy places, you could literally buy these. You get to Bath, or I think we had one from Bolton on the Water. And there was a little model place there as well that we had these. And you literally plug it in. And I think we had one from London, so some of the sites of London. You pop it in, and it's so effective. But the older version of that, I had a kind of the older version, which was just literally, and again, you could buy them as touristy sort of type places, and it was just a much simpler viewer, a couple of magnifying glasses. They were larger images, but they were printed. So rather than being kind of sort of like slides, they were literally just prints, and you just slotted them into this viewer, and it just folded out. It was probably about kind of 4 inches deep, and you kind of hold it out, and you'd hold it to your nose, and so there was like a little sort of divider, so each eye would see this just ever so slightly different image, because essentially they had been taken with two probably plate cameras side by side, or 120 film, I guess, probably, and maybe 35. I don't know how old they were. They were quite old, some of the ones we had, and it was amazing. I mean, a lot of them were black and white, and just to be able to sort of suddenly see these kind of images, because those ones were actually big enough that you could look at them without the magnifying glass, but once you put it in front of your eyes in the viewer, it's actually quite amazing how your brain sees these things, or doesn't. Yeah, it's like your nose is in every all the time you got your eyes open, you can see your nose. But if you don't think about it, you don't see it. But if you think about it, your nose is there every time.
I'll tell you what's a good rabbit hole for you to go down there as well. So on about like the stereoscopic viewing, there's, I don't know if you've ever heard of binaural audio. That's another one fascinating. The fact that just a standard stereo signal can feel like a full 360 like sound stage. The best, I'll say video, it's on YouTube, so I'll say video, but it's just a blank screen and then you hear the audio. The Barbershop is the best one that I've genuinely ever listened to. Just whack some headphones in. With
some proper headphones on, it is really disturbing.
It's scary how well it works. But that's something else, just a simple trick. The fact that the microphones are the right spacing from where the human ears would normally be. Put a bit of cups around them to match a human ear, and whatever it picks up, because it's so close to what you would naturally pick up, it sounds as if you're there, and you're not.
There's a guy on YouTube that I discovered a year or two back, and he's a audio engineer, but he gets into some really cool in-depth stuff. Hexy Bass, I think he goes by, and he's done a lot of things like just getting a particular single speaker, like a subwoofer off, like a 4-inch subwoofer from somewhere, and then designing and developing a speaker enclosure specifically for that speaker for a particular purpose. And then like 3D printing out the enclosure and doing all the audio dynamics on it to show the paths of the sound pressure and all this kind of stuff. Really, really super nerdy, but very, very cool. And then he does this like full like audio test setup, all isolated things, and then he's got binaural microphones to pick up. So even then, just hearing back the difference between applying different audio levels, even through your own headphones, it's really, really cool to see this thing to just be, just a speaker on its own that he's ordered from AliExpress or something like that, and then to develop a really specific sound feel from it. It's, for audio nerds, it's pretty cool.
I'm gonna have to look at that now.
Yeah, I'll dig them out and send it a link.
I used to show when I was teaching. There's a TED talk from years ago. I can't remember the name of the guy now, but his speciality was in focusing sound, and he literally had this part of his demonstration. He had this very specific design of speaker, and it was very flat. There wasn't much to it. It wasn't like a kind of traditional speaker with a huge magnet at the back and a cone. And he could literally, as part of this demonstration, he points it at different parts of the audience. And it's never pointed at the camera thing, but you can hear and see the audience reacting, because it's only the person it's pointing at that can hear it. So it's literally, if you're 2 seats away from the person that's being pointed at, you cannot hear what the sound is until it comes onto you. And it's kind of, and application wise, he was talking about things like when you're in a queue, when you go to like a shop and they've got like a TV set showing like this JBL type whatever, this kind of this fancy new kitchen gadget or this fancy new tool or whatever. And sometimes in shops they just have the sound off, or because the sound's annoying, particularly for the kind of the workers. But you could literally have it so that if you were stood in a particular part of the queue, you would hear the sound. The people on the tills would never. And if you then stepped just a foot either side, you wouldn't hear it anymore.
It's just targeted advertising fodder, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just imagine this like gantry just above the tills where you've just got these people with these like sonic rifles just pointed adverts at each individual person as they're walking on the shop.
I'll tell you what, they need that in like events, so like in music venues, and then just have it so it's focused everywhere but the bar. So when you get to the bar, you haven't got to be shouted over. It's just utter silence at the bar, and then one step back and you're back in the mix.
We talk about sound has been used. It's been kind of sort of weaponized. I mean, it go back to kind of Nicaragua, when the Americans kind of were trying to do what the Americans do out there, just going back in, and they literally, I think it was somebody was locked up in a fortified kind of sort of villa type place, and they literally kind of aimed heavy metal music at it at huge decibels for days on end to kind of sort of try and wear them down. But the same guy was talking about how you could, if you had like a riot or something like that, you could literally focus high decibel sound at a person to the extent that they would kind of because big sound it will incapacitate you, so you could literally kind of sort of target people, and it's completely safe to a certain extent.
So interestingly enough, there's, because I used to do a little bit of digging and reading on that kind of stuff with it's like SPL competitions and things like that, with sound pressure level stuff, big car sound systems and that kind of thing. And there's a whole kind of run with some bloggers essentially back in the day, and they were quite renowned for that. They had big heavy setups that were still drivable, and they'd be driving through California or wherever, and having an effect on other cars while they were driving down the street. And there was a guy who was reporting and like interviewing one of these guys, and the guy got in the car with him. He sort of hands him this pair of ear defenders, and it's, we're getting into like above the pain threshold for for where the body starts having physical reactions and things. So, but the difference is it's the higher frequencies, the higher pitched sound that does the real damage. Whereas the lower frequencies, they have a more visceral effect on the rest of the body, but less on the eardrums. You kind of go numb very quickly on the ears, but they won't tend to bleed. Whereas higher pressure sound, higher frequency sound will give you more of the pain. So he was just driving around. He just had this big massive button on his dashboard that he could just hit this button and then just see all the car alarms going off around them and that kind of stuff. And it's crazy, crazy sort of stuff. And there's a couple of, I want to say it might have been modern alarms. Were developing at one point an ultrasonic, might have been infrasonic alarm system, but the idea being that it was like warbling, oscillating sounds at very, very low frequencies, but very, very high sound pressure levels. And the idea being that instead of having like a super loud house alarm if someone broke in, what would happen is they would basically just incapacitate the person, so that they'd break in, set the alarm off, and then you get the notification that someone's broken into your house. The police turn up and switch the alarm off and find a person just kind of in a puddle of their own spit and vomit and things on the floor. So I think it's a really weird and crazy idea, but it could be quite cool.
It's like the mosquito alarms.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Do my head in those.
And there's a lot we don't know about actually how sort of sound works. I was listening to a podcast last year before. It was talking about how there was this lab. It was a university lab, I think, and basically loads of people swore that this lab was haunted because there were some strange things happening in this lab. And one guy decided to sort of really investigate it, and he identified that there was this fan producing a particular frequency of infrasound that people, so sound below the threshold of human hearing, that people could actually were feeling in certain parts of the room. And when they changed that fan out and put a different one in, it was part of the ventilation system or something. When they did that, room was perfectly okay. And
amazing.
It's strange. It's interesting how kind of sound works together. I used to do this demonstration when I was teaching A-level physics. The boards we had speakers either side, so the speakers were essentially nearly 2 meters apart. And if you play a constant note, I used to use 440 hertz. So really quite audible, not painful, not like kind of the high frequency stuff, but just it's a note. It's a bit annoying if you just play it and you particularly on mono or thing, but you play it on stereo. The sound coming out from both speakers is exactly the same. But of course, sound is kind of pressure waves, so you've got these kind of bits where it's high pressure, bits where it's lower pressure, and the two speakers will interfere with each other. So if you then walk across left to right or right, it doesn't really matter. If you walk across in front of that source of sound, there'll be some parts where the sound is kind of adding to itself, and there's other parts where the sound is actually cancelling out. So a bit like kind of how Isotune sort of noise cancelling headphones work. So you'll walk across. If you just sat still, you hear this constant note. But if you walk across it, you hear it going up and down as you walk across. And it's like when kind of students first see that or experience that, they're like, what's going on? It's like it's kind of doesn't make sense initially, and then obviously you talk about kind of constructive and destructive interference. You spend lots of time with sort of pairs of compasses, drawing lots of circles or semicircles to sort of try and work out, well, there's the high pressure, there's the low pressure, or there's the cancellation Actually, it's not just low pressure. There's a cancellation of sort of signal. So if you're stood there, you get nothing. If you stood there, you're getting twice as loud.
That's what one of the things they do with like subwoofers in cars and things is they would do something like a tube or an enclosure of some sort and have two drivers there, and then invert one by 180 degrees. So you then get in that both drivers working together with the same internal chamber. So you effectively then double the output of the sound, or however the scale works. It's logarithmic, isn't it, for decibels?
So 10 decibel change is doubling, if I remember correctly.
Something like that.
Was it tenfold? I can't remember now.
Yeah,
it's louder.
It gets louder.
Yeah.
But in doing that, instead of having two speakers with two enclosures, having the two in the one enclosure and inverting 180 degrees phase, you can increase the sound pressure level. Make more louder, more better.
It's amazing how people figure all this stuff out. I watched a program quite a while back, and it was looking at like the Aztec temples and stuff, and they'd been like designed architecturally. I think that's the word.
Close enough.
To like actually produce different kind of sound effects. And there was this one guy giving like a demonstration, standing at the base of the stairs, and like you clap or shout, and you get basically a perfect echo right back to you within seconds. And they've got like screaming jugs and whistles and all this fascinating stuff that they use for whether it's like religious ceremonies or scaring enemies or whatever. But just you would think in that era of time that there wasn't a real understanding of what was happening, but we knew enough that if you do this will here's the cause, here's the effect, just to work it out. I don't know. Beyond me, miles beyond me.
I think they knew this. They knew the science. They just probably couldn't apply the maths to it because a lot of the maths hadn't been developed at that time. And I think that's what we do now. Is we have the ability to maybe analyze things mathematically that people knew about then. But then I think a lot of stuff's been lost. I mean, like some of the concrete that was used by the Romans, which has lasted thousands of years. Whereas, some of the concrete we make nowadays doesn't last 10 years. Damascus steel.
It was only relatively recently that they were relooking at blocks in the pyramids and saying that they might have been a particular type of concrete that we don't know about or don't use. They might have been cast rather than quarried.
But I mean that's just fascinating how they managed to build those huge
teams
structures.
Of well-paid labour.
Yeah,
aliens.
It's where
everything's aliens.
It was. They were built for the gold Hatak vessels to come and rest on. It's, if you believe the documentary Stargate.
Yeah, accurately.
Yeah.
I used to love Stargate. I used to love it, and I think it's a beneficial position of I watched the series genuinely before realizing that there was a film. Yeah. So then when I found out there was a film, I was like, no, this is wrong. What's happened here?
Not right.
It's wrong.
I don't think I've ever seen more than about 4 Stargates.
That's so good.
Wrong, I know. Yeah. So much TV, that's part of the problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, we've got 2 hours and 10 minutes nearly. It's time for introduction.
Yeah, do you want to start? Get started?
Yeah, warm-up's done. Yeah.
We've got Joe off of the telly.
Yeah. TV star. It makes you you're going to be in a queue. You're going to have queues at Maker Central for people to come and get their autograph.
I mean, I haven't thought about it, but I should probably get my pricing sorted out, shouldn't I? Like, how much
Yeah.
for photos, how much for autographs.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
What else
Like,
could I sell?
Comic Cons,
Charging for
there's sort of-
hugs,
Yeah, hugs.
underwear, the usual. Bathwater.
I don't know. Bathwater, yeah. Although I saw, like one of these streamers had she'd hurt herself. I think she was selling jars of wind. Best way to put it. And then there was like this article that was written that she like had to go to the emergency room.
I heard about that. Yeah.
Praying too much.
Oh no!
Well, I mean, you did say that you were going to get your OnlyFans sorted for that shelf, so it's.
I did.
I
I had an idea genuinely, like when OnlyFans was like first kicking off, I was gonna make an OnlyFans. I was genuinely gonna make an OnlyFans, and it was just gonna be like tools. And I thought, oh, it'll be like a little fun thing to do. But then I follow Linus Tech Tips, and they did one, and it was just like they just showed computer parts. I'm like, oh, it's kind of the bolt's gone there. They've cottoned onto that, like so. But so I never done it. But yeah, I just thought it would have been funny to be like just to post. I've got an OnlyFans. And then just see who clicks through.
Well, I think Chris Smith actually just got a load of photos because when we were getting like all sorts of stupid stuff through on Instagram, drop messages and things, and he got a load of photos of fans. And because he'd put some post somewhere and mentioned OnlyFans, so then started getting all these marketers saying, "Oh, we can help boost your OnlyFans profile." Yeah. So they were saying, like, "Oh, send your top 3 photos, and we'll critique them for you and see how we can boost your numbers and stuff." So he just basically sent photos of fans through to these, like computer fans and things.
Yeah.
I mean, there's loads of different styles. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, imagine. Yeah, I hope you have some office fans, standing ones as well as tabletop and.
Would you include
fans.
the Dyson air blower thing? Witchcraft fan?
Yeah. It's just a cowled fan. It's still a fan. It's just got a fancy
I threw away a
cowling on
3D printed one the other day, actually.
What about kind of Oriental style, kind of the folding fans? I think there's a bit of still a market. I think there's still a market in it. Yeah, go for it.
There is.
Yeah, I think so. Just do bevels and joints and roundovers and that kind of thing. I think there's definitely a market for it in the maker community.
If anything, it could be a good cover story for why OnlyFans is showing up on your bank statement. Because then I'm subscribed to Joe, and look, this is what Joe posts. It's just woodworking stuff. Oh, okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. Can you sort that out for me? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, but there are 17 different payments going out every month.
Yeah, it's like my mates switched over from Patreon to OnlyFans.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's one for tools, there's one for fans, different types of fans, another one for different types of wood joints. There's another one that compares wood glues.
There's another that's just resin pours into generic moulds of the same bits of live edge wood.
It's that you got me thinking now. You're tempting me.
And there's some of these are cooking ones as well. Yeah, you got Franco Noches does his cooking, and so any kind of
Welshman's kitchen doing.
There's a lot of chicken dishes, so there's often a lot of talk about breast and leg, yeah.
And a lot of cock.
Oh, they must have missed the old van off on the statement here. It's
Oh, fantastic.
a leaky. It should have said a leaky at the end. I don't know what they've missed that off for. I haven't heard cock a leaky for years. That's just come in my mind. I don't know why.
I'm saying nothing.
So So Joe, what's been grabbing your attention lately? This is the part of the show where we kind of sort of which could be somewhere near the end, but often it's somewhere in the middle.
It's somewhere after the beginning.
Yeah, where we kind of, sort of talk about things. Could be anything: videos, books, TV, projects you're working on, projects you have been working on, whatever. What's been grabbing your attention?
I think probably apart from OnlyFans, the big thing that's caught my attention recently is Making Fun on Netflix. I think that's been fascinating to see. You got that juxtaposition of great and make a show, but then the fact that I'm not I don't know them, but I know these guys to some extent, and it's just I think it's nice to see people that kind of thing. But I like how they've done it as well. It is very Americanized TV. So if you see American TV compared to UK TV, it's worlds apart. So there is a lot of that. But I do actually like how much information they get across. There is some useful tips and tricks and going into the engineering of different aspects of what they're doing. And then of course just the personality. The others won't mind me saying that Pat Lapp is kind of stealing it, I think, for me. His sense of humour is just wild.
That is not surprising in the slightest, to be fair.
Not at all. But just seeing that he was able to get away with the stuff is it's brilliant. So that's kind of I've been binging it. I'm 5 episodes in now. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it.
I didn't realise they dropped a lot. I thought they would just kind of sort of do one episode at a time. I didn't realise they dropped a lot of them.
Yeah, it's all there, all ready to binge.
It's a smaller show on a streaming platform. They just dropped a lot. It's only when it's one of the big, massive, $20 million an episode, half the world's going to be watching it kind of things that they tend to release them one a week.
Yeah, hopefully it will encourage a few more people into making.
I think so. It's one of those where I think a lot of the social media side of making, although you hope that it will encourage a lot of people to get into it who've never had any kind of interest before, there still is that aspect of maybe they need to search for something in particular or just happen across something that catches their attention, as opposed to a TV show or something on a streaming platform. People are always just, look, what's new, what's just been released, something that they would have never searched for, had no interest at all. They're going to click on it now and could open up a whole new world for them.
I think it'd be good to get more eyes on and more people aware of the fact that we can make stuff and that there are people out there showing you how to do it and showing how accessible it is and how easy it is for the average person or the average Joe even to make some stuff.
Definitely, it's kind of a different aspiration side of things as well. So we talked earlier about your perfect life on Instagram getting shared and people going on fancy holidays and new cars and big houses, and it's I could see a lot of people watching these shows and thinking, I want to have a workshop like that. I'm jealous of that workshop instead, or I want to learn that skill. I want to be able to turn on the lathe like Pat does, and I want to learn how to weld, and I want to be able to do all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I'm not going to make a giant nutcracker, but I'd like to be able to weld 2 bits of metal together, so that could be handy. But yeah, I think
even stuff going into the middle of Lidl and seeing some tools for 30 quid and going, oh, now I know what I can do with that.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think that's what I liked almost about the woodworking show that you were on, because there weren't that many. For those of us perhaps in the know, there were a wide variety of tools there, and obviously there were some of the specific challenges. There were the lathes, for example, but for several of the sort of challenges and for quite a few of the builds, there weren't really any particularly fancy tools. It wasn't that clearly. Yes, a workshop does cost a lot of money, but some of the stuff, for example, you were doing, you were using a drill and a jigsaw, and a circular saw to make the bed, for example. That shows kind of accessibility. I think I kind of hope that Netflix might kind of sort of go, right, making fun. It's worked as a concept. Now let's see if we can maybe get this going in other countries to give that slightly different approach to it. Bring it over here, get Ruth Amos and Sean involved in it, and the Kids Invent Stuff crew, and get maybe a better range of diversity showing rather than just sort of 5 blokes with beards. Gets so that particularly the young people can see, young girls can see kind of female makers, and maybe get some people of colour involved, so you can see that it's not just something that white middle-aged blokes with beards do. And get those different, because there are those cultural differences between countries. And I mean, I know Laura Kampf's been doing a kids program that, or as parts of that. I can't remember the name of it. It's in German. It's a program that's been running for years, decades. Because she was on Steve Ramsey's podcast last week or the week before. I think she mentioned it there about how kind of she'd seen it as a child, and it was something that inspired her, and she wanted to kind of do stuff and actually take things a little bit further. So it'd be nice to kind of try and get those sort of cultural differences in and show more people across the world that actually making is something that is very accessible to people.
And a historical practice, encouraging people to say, go and have a chat with your grandparents, see what they used to make, see what they still make. That kind of. I think it's a high chance it's going to go more that way anyway, with the rising costs of general life at the minute. I think it's more. It's a perfect time to have those kind of shows on. Like you say, with the success of things like Bake Off, getting people into baking, and then, since your show, Joe, the people who've then been more into, there's already been kind of more British newbies coming to the scene, and trying to figure out how to make stuff, and hopefully
definitely. I think there's definitely like some kind of revolution going on, and I do think it is that same kind of feeling behind it. I think about. We kind of had a similar impact to the food industry, if I remember right, in terms of you have a generation of people who pick up a steak in the supermarket and genuinely have no connection to where that steak has come from.
Yeah.
So you had massive education drives on the treatment of the animals, what goes in, like from start to finish, to give people the informed choice about what they're doing, what they're eating, and what the impacts are going to be. And then you look at it from a making point of view now, and you can kind of, I'm guilty of it. I think everyone's guilty of it. We take for granted the world around us, and realising that people made everything that is around you. And I know saying it is obviously, but you don't actually stop and think what went into making that biro into this little fake potted plant. By seeing the process, you have a greater appreciation for everything around you, and the realization that everything's been designed, every process has been thought out from start to finish. There's been machinery specifically designed to make that one thing, and it changes your point of view, and I think you appreciate things a hell of a lot more, which can only ever be a good thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well said, that man.
Yeah. Jamie, what about you? What's been grabbing your attention?
Well, it's been a pretty productive week for me, actually. I've been actively trying to declutter and decrap and get rid of stuff, and be very ruthless to try and work out what projects am I ever going to get back to. Not only have I used this in the last 2 years, but like, did this thing go defunct and obsolete 5 years ago? And was it getting there when I started it 6 or 7 years ago? That kind of thing. But in the kind of the topic of like the Maker Central stuff before, and talking about having some kind of indicator of a thing, a few of us got a nice little e-ink programmable badge thing from Pimaroni called the Badger 2040. So I've been playing with that with Simon and Duncan recently, and it is very, very, very cool.
They are.
So yeah, it's a completely programmable e-ink badge.
Nice.
That you can put different things on, and then you can switch between things and stuff like that. So hopefully that will become my little indicator of how burnt am I out am by the end of day one and make a central.
What you could do, if you could set it up, if you just kind of have some small little change that you can make to how you're dressed, you could literally kind of walk behind sort of some kind of exhibition, come out the other side, and just change your name and say, "Oh yeah, Jamie's my twin brother."
Entirely doable, yeah. It's a different badge.
Yeah,
it's a different name.
Just change your glasses or something. Yeah, just find an old pair of glasses or. Yeah,
I can't imagine that.
Stick your beard. Stick a band around your beard.
Of all the features of me, I can't imagine changing the glasses would be enough to fool someone.
Well, it depends whether you go for their average, with kind of squiggly bits.
Squirt around, yeah.
You could use it to sneak into like corporate events, just catch a glimpse of the guest list and then just quickly program the badge. Yeah, I'm John Smith. Like, I think I'm on the list. Yeah, okay, come through.
Well, I did notice before because I got a bit of an interest in barcode type stuff, and Carrie Byron posted a badge to an event that she's going to before, and it had a little QR code in it. So first thing I did was scanned it and got the got her actual unique identifier for the event. I was thinking, she realizes that that's someone could then just clone the badge and go in as Carrie Byron, but I think they might.
Don't think you're going to get away with that one, though.
I probably wouldn't. No.
I think you're a bit taller.
A little bit.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Wrong hair colour. That's the main difference.
I think wrong hair position. I think.
Position.
Hers flows down. Mine does the same.
Yes, so just in different points of your head.
Yes. What about you, Andy? What's been grabbing your attention?
Not a lot this week. I think again, like last week, been rather taken with too much doom scrolling about what's happening in the Ukraine, which obviously is a very sad state of affairs. So not a huge amount. I've done, I think, pretty much zero making this week. I've done zero tidying up. But I did catch actually what I did catch earlier today, which kind of sort of caught my eye. Becky Stern put a video out today. And she made a smart mirror. She took a monitor, some two-way glass, and a Raspberry Pi. So mounted that in her bathroom. So it kind of it welcomes her and tells her what the weather's going to be for the day and what the traffic's going to be and whatever other information she wants to do.
Nice.
Not an original build. I've seen a few of those before, but it was I think I like her work. I mean, she did the DigiKey this week, the Maker Update that DigiKey sponsor, which is normally either Donald Bell or Tyler Weingartner, which is a video I try and catch every week. It's a nice kind of projects. It tends to be more the kind of the 3D printer electronic type projects rather than kind of the wood type projects. Not that they don't show those, but it tends to kind of be more the maker, a variety of technique type makers as opposed to woodworker, metalworker type makers. So often a lot of electronics, often a lot of very unique projects. So she did that this week, had some really good projects on it, and then she released her own this week. And I mean, she works at Instructables and she works with DigiKey. She does quite a lot of freelance work, works with Make as well, and she generally produces some really nice projects. Yeah, and presents them in a manner that I find appealing.
Yeah, she's very cool, very gentle.
She doesn't do it from a fancy workshop. She literally is building stuff at the moment in her apartment in Brooklyn. Yeah, it's this. I mean, it is kind of sort of set up as a workshop, but yeah, there isn't a big workbench. I mean, literally, she was doing the woodwork for this project on using a sort of a super jaw type clamp next to her desk. You can literally see there's a desk and there's the window outside of her flat. So it's I think sometimes, particularly when you kind of sort of see Americans. I mean, I kind of sort of remember back in the kind of when I first got involved in kind of watching YouTube and getting involved in the maker community that connected to YouTube. People talking about their tiny workshops. And the Americans talking about their the
tiny
kind of,
6-car
I was watching a lot of
workshop.
workshop ones, and it's right. That's bigger than a single garage in the UK. Oh, their single garage in the States. It's like, well, that'd be almost a triple in the UK. And so they're kind of. It's nice to watch videos where people have got really nice workshops, and I'd love to have that. And my wife and I have discussed that if and when we move from our current house, and most people know that Tinkeridge is smaller, that one of the things we will try and look for is that there's a decent sized workshop space for me to be able to have a good sized workshop in, and that might just be a single garage. Hopefully it's something bigger, but I'll take what I can get if it's bigger than the Tinkeridge.
You need a workshop big enough to stick a 9-foot by 6-foot ship anchor in. That's what you need.
Well, that's what John needs. Yeah, I mean, I mean, it's a bit of a tight squeeze, isn't it, in his shop for that?
In John's warehouse.
For those who don't get that, go and check out John D. Harvey's YouTube channel where he does give a tour of his workshop. But it's nice watching people make stuff in a good sized workshop, and there are some fantastic good sized workshops to see on YouTube. Some in this country, some abroad. But I think in some ways it's nicer, and I don't want to say better, but I think there's certainly kind of an element of preference for me. And I think potentially for maybe new people coming into making, whatever form that is, to see people making things essentially in their living room or on their kitchen table or in that sort of tiny workshop. But it's also nice to see things grow. I mean, you've struggled, Joe, because you were given that CNC to put together, and it didn't fit.
No, it didn't fit. That was terrible. That was. So, I mean, my shed workshop is 12 foot by 8 foot, which is it's a fantastic space. Like, massive for everything that you want to do, apart from putting in a full 8 foot by 4 foot capable CNC machine. So it didn't fit. So like I am in the process of trying to find somewhere like that I can rent to use as a workshop space. But I'm genuinely surprised. I thought the issue was going to be that I couldn't find anywhere that I could afford. Now I've got a very tight, very, very tight budget. But even if money was no object, genuinely, there's nowhere available. Every agent that I've spoke to has said that since we had like lockdown and the pandemic kicked off, they had an influx of people starting their own businesses and snapping up all these workshop spaces. So I can easily get a 50,000 square foot warehouse. A little bit out my budget, just a tiny bit, and probably a bit big for my needs. So other than that, I've not been able to find anywhere at all, not even just a regular storage unit, not anywhere that does shipping containers on sites. Everywhere is snapped up. So I'm looking for like around 1,000 to 2,000 square foot. Be a bit bigger than my shed, but I've got to find somewhere first. Yeah, got to find somewhere.
Yeah, that'd be nice. That'd be nice to see if you hopefully something will turn up.
But even that's from a point of view of what I'd be able to do in terms of video wise, just having that extra space for like having camera and lights around, but then also just being able to produce larger pieces. Like I'd love to make that bed again, but I couldn't do it in my shed, or make the chairs that I've done on the show. I'd love to do like a run of those, and I could make one at a time maybe in my shed, which just it wouldn't be viable. So that's the plan, but I've got to find somewhere first.
class.
Yeah, like you said with the video recording. I mean, so many of us try and make it almost with the camera over our back or from the side, because that's all we can fit it in. But if you can literally almost have a bench where you can put the camera the other side, so it's always pointing towards you. You're never going to get those sort of issues of, oh, so that really good shot is spoiled by my elbow.
Yeah.
So yeah. So if anyone knows of anything in the kind of greater Wolverhampton area, then give Joe a shout. Or if anyone wants to sponsor you for the 50,000 square feet or a share of.
Yeah. I wouldn't say no. Yeah. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who's scrambling over to sort that. But the long term ambition, I know it's very easy to say, but the long term ambition that I really want to do is I want to have a large space that I can kind of open up as, I don't want to say make a space, but more of like a community kind of hub setup sort of thing. So that's the long term plan, but we're miles away from that. So who knows? One day 50,000 square foot might be what I'm looking for, and then there'll be loads that I can choose from.
You hope.
I hope, yeah, it'll probably be all of them will be snapped up
all
by
the
then.
way around, yeah.
Yeah.
So we can provide the shipping container for you.
Yeah. I'll just stack them.
I wouldn't stack them vertically, maybe horizontally.
Yeah. Jenga blocks. That'll be my Jenga block. I'll just bring a shipping container.
So yeah, we'll recognise Joe, or people will recognise Joe by the kind of the forklift truck with a 20-foot container on the front of it.
Yeah.
Mobile workshop.
Yeah, that's the way. I mean, you've got space in the garden to get a container to stick over.
I wish. I've got like 3 sheds on the go at the moment, and that's already took up to. Apparently, we still need a garden, which I still don't fully understand, but it's something. Yeah.
Fill it with concrete in a container, and there's less lawn mowing needed.
Exactly.
No weeding.
Gardening should only ever be done with flamethrowers and concrete. That's gardening.
Pretty much.
I can remember my first school, the head of physics and somebody else were having a chat about gardens after school one day, and they were talking about problems with the head of physics was talking about problems with his lawn, and I was just sort of stood there kind of sort of dipped in and said, I've got a perfect solution for that, and it just really straight faced and whatever, and they were like, oh, you into gardens? You know what to suggest? Yeah, concrete. And they were like, oh. Little wonder why I didn't get the best classes.
No wonder. So, Joe, if someone was trying to stalk you and check out your back catalogue and find out who you are, what you're about, if they are one of the very few people who don't already know who you are, where would they do so?
Best thing that you can do is probably just whack into Google average Joe's joinery, and everything should pretty much pop up, because I go by that on every platform. I've got a couple of like different handles here and there, but searching that, I'll pop up. So nice and simple.
Sounds good. Is that going to be the same title for your OnlyFans as well?
It is, yeah. I just do AVG Joe's joinery, because the usernames you're not allowed too many characters. But yeah, I think if you search average Joe's joinery, there's one video in particular that is doing quite well, so that should pop up. Yeah.
Awesome.
I think on your Instagram, there's a link to your Linktree, if I remember rightly.
Oh yeah. I got a link. I forgot I got Linktree. Yeah, Linktree. So Instagram bio, because Instagram, I don't know why they don't let you put clickable links. But yeah, one link. So it's all on there. I need to add my OnlyFans to it though, actually. So I'll get that added, and then everything will be on my Linktree.
We'll look forward to it. If you get that sorted in the next couple of days, then send me the link, and I'll add it to the video description.
Cheers.
So people can go straight to it.
Joe, it's been an absolute pleasure this evening. Thank you very much for coming.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Honestly, I've really enjoyed it. It's been great catching up with you and just having a chat. Brilliant.
Absolutely.
It's been a while since you've been on a podcast. I mean,
it has.
for those who kind of really want to dig down and stalk, go back and listen to sort of the first 3 years worth of Makers International.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I think 3, maybe even 4. Touch it on. I'm not too sure actually, but it was a long time. Yeah, Makers International.
We stole your spot.
Look, it needed filling.
Keeping it warm.
It needed filling.
Keeping it warm till the next people decide to come along. Yeah.
Well, this is true. This is true.
On that note, let's say goodbye to folks. Thank you for people who are listening.
Indeed.
Thank you for. Next week we have Morley Kert. So international visitations next week. Toronto, if I remember correctly.
Yes, I think so.
Not sure how many hours behind that is, but we'll find out next week.
Thanks again, Joe. And it's been a pleasure.
Cheers, lads. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you. Right, bye then, folks.
See you later.
Ta-ra a bit.